hello everybody, Klaire Fluffle here. I've got a different kind of video for you today. I've been kind of promising for a long time that I would make a follow-up tier list to the one that I made. Oh god, that was 5 years ago. Wow, time flies. I explain a lot of the specifics in the video itself, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to let you know that this tier list was live streamed on both my Twitch and my YouTube. If you don't want to have to go to Twitch, you can just watch these on my YouTube stream. That is totally fine, but I stream them on this very channel. I have a schedule in my community tab every single week, so if you want some more puppy after this, that's where you can go. Of course, if you want to make sure that you get notified whenever streams happen, you can subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. Also, liking the video helps an absolute ton, and I want to know, not only for the sake of the algorithm, but because I'm genuinely curious about what all of you wonderful, wonderful people think. What is your favorite copy ability? Let me know in the comments below. And if you would like to go the extra mile, you can become a Puptrin by supporting me on Patreon. You can find the link to that in the description. You do get neat perks, including early access to all videos, including this one. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan Puptrins, Biohazard, Vilafar, Lydia Scribe, and Freakish Uproar. I love you all. Enjoy the tier list. Where does Bergie rank on the tier list? Okay, so this is actually something I want to talk about real Is this an objective or a subjective list? Objective is something I want to make like a proper YouTube video out of someday. I mean, I'm probably going to make this a YouTube video just to get myself a break this week. Objective is definitely something I would want to make. I mean, this is a bit more personal, but I mean, it's still going to factor in a lot of things that you would expect from my list to factor in. No, well, yeah, I guess you should be happy that we're not doing upgrades then, because I don't like Noble Ranger. Yeah, no, we got a lot of abilities to cover. I am including normal Kirby, so that's 70, but we have the 6 duplicates here, so we still got 64 to go. So we're gonna be here a while, and then everything Kawasaki after, obviously, we're not doing, because, again, like, helpers, or elements, whatever, power-ups, upgrades, super abilities, robot armor, here's going to be the Forgotten Land stuff, final upgrades, epic yarn, super Kirby Clash, KDL 3, like, this stuff we're not going to worry about. Just these. I think normal is actually a good point to start with, plus I like the joke, so, we'll start with normal. Normal Kirby, base, regular normal Kirby, can't really do much of anything. I have a feeling most people would probably put this, like, here, maybe around here. This might be a take. I don't know if people are going to agree with this. I don't know if they're going to disagree with this. And I did put, like, a lot of thought into this list. It wasn't very much, like, spur of the moment. I'm not necessarily going to say this is static forever. But, I did put a lot of thought into this, and I would put normal base Kirby in the high. I really like normal based Kirby. I said base. I can only think about base right now. But I really like the regular default Kirby. I just think the challenges of just playing as the regular Kirby and not going for ability cheese or whatever, I just think it's so much fun. I understand that it feels weird that this is actually going to be above a lot of abilities, but not having the ability cheese, it's just so fun to me. I love playing with the regular old Kirby, trying to do these challenges, you know? I love only being able to spit back the stars, and they do a lot of damage, but you're very limited compared to how you are with other abilities. I think that's super cool. I think for regular movement, NCA, as it's called, we've got Forgotten Land NCA, which is always fun, Canvas Curse, which is essentially NCA the game. Normal Kirby is a blast. I really like playing as normal Kirby. Obviously, there's stuff like KDL 1 where you're only normal Kirby, and of course the spin-off stuff like that. It's just fun, especially the boss rush modes. I think those are where I think normal Kirby shines the most. I think the challenge, especially if you're trying to go fast, the challenge of trying to beat the bosses on the hardest difficulty at least, KSS Arena, Kirby Superstar Ultra True Arena, Ultimate Choice, Soul Melter EX. I just really like normal Kirby. Normal Kirby is really fun. Obviously, all of these other abilities, pretty much with some fringe exceptions, normal Kirby is also inherently a part of them, so I think that adds to it too. But I really like normal Kirby. I don't know what to say. I really like normal Kirby. Fun in every single game that they're in. It's more fun than abilities in some cases. I still think Canvas Curse, if it's up to me, I specifically actually don't want to play with abilities, even though kind of a beef I have with Rainbow Curse is that you can't. Could I gift 5 subs to put Sword at the top? Not the top, but I will say I am, how do I want to put this? I am easily swayed by the dollar bill. I'll word it like that. See, I don't know what fish is. Water is a nice ability? Is that what you mean by fish? Water is good, though. I like water. Well, okay, I guess I spoiled it, so I guess I gotta do water now. My bad. Water is good. I do like water. Where is it? Here we go. I'm gonna put water in the upper mid. I do like water a fair amount. Yo, it's the Kirby Clash music. But I do like water a pretty fair amount. It's fun. What kind of does hurt water for me personally is not its dash attack. Its dash attack is fun. But the dash itself, having that really slow, awkward startup to it, I don't like that. It's not a deal breaker. I don't hate it. But if I'm going to use any other ability that just kind of lets me run around freely, and then I have to go to water and it starts really slow, it just kind of finagles with the psychological feeling of it to me. It doesn't feel satisfying to start a dash. And I know if you're speedrunning, you're really just going to be using the dash attack, so the dash isn't going to matter. And in Kirby Fighters 2, it's actually for balancing purposes because water is stupid in that game. This isn't all about speedrunning, you know, this is just what I like. Speedrunning is a big part of it, and I was actually thinking, I think in my initial draft, I had water here, but thinking about how fun the dash attack is to just cheese speedruns with, I booted it up. But it's mostly the dash. There's also a few attacks in its kit that I just really don't care about. I love the dash attack, and I love the rainbow. Every single other attack in Water's kit, I either don't remember, or I could care less about. I guess the normal, like, water spit attack can be pretty funny if you're in a fast wind section, and the wind is pushing you ahead, and you want to see if you can outspeed the water. That can be pretty fun, but in a standard situation, I don't really care. The water splash attack that you do when you're on the ground, I just forget that it's there. I guess I just don't think it's the most interesting. It's a fun ability, and I still very much like it. The upper mid is still very good, but I don't love it, you know? Also gonna go now. Have to walk the dog, not Claire. I was gonna say, if anybody's gonna walk me, it's Nico for sure. Yeah, okay, looks like the vibes are going around Suplex. So let me find Suplex first. There's so many abilities. Okay, I found it. And I believe, Suplex I put... Suplex is another one that I really enjoy. I'm gonna put it a little bit below water. I really like Suplex in Superstar Ultra. I mean, OG, it's not too different between Superstar and Superstar Ultra. It's mostly the same in those two. I mean, a big thing for me is that I'm not super crazy about it in Star Allies. I don't dislike it in Star Allies. It was doing that Soul Melter EX solo with Suplex. It was fun, but it was way harder than it should have been just because Suplex has a surprisingly sad few amount of options. But I still really like Suplex, especially in the Superstar games. More so Superstar Ultra. It's actually one of my favorite abilities in Ultra. And I pretty much love every ability with like one or two exceptions in Ultra. So for Superstar Ultra definitely has my favorite ability roster of the series. Not in terms of the abilities themselves, but how they play. Superstar Ultra like clears everything else. So for Suplex to be one of my favorites in that game is a really high bar. I just think it's so much fun. I love the animations. I recently discovered this. I talked about it in my Breaking Kirby Speedruns video. I recently discovered that you can crash the game in Dynablade with Suplex on the first level. In the final room, before you fight Kawasaki, there's a bomber. And if you're in the air and you grab the bomber right before you land, if you press A, when Kirby does that really wide command grab, then the game crashes. I don't know why it's specifically that. I can't think of anywhere else to set it up. But it's really funny. I mean, Suplex itself is just a funny ability. Like you see in the artwork with the Waddle Dee going all, ow! And Suplex Kirby going, yeah! Really fun to move around with, too. I really like that it has a grounded dash attack that makes you go really fast, but it kind of slows down towards the end. But it kind of cancels itself if you hit a wall, so it's really good to kind of ram into walls with it. And if you hit an enemy and you do the down throw, it's also really fast. So even if you hit an enemy and you kind of mess up, it's okay. It's got, I don't know if I'd call it speedrun viable, but it's got really fun movement options. It's really strong, really fun, really silly. It's just got a lot of really good stuff in Superstar Ultra especially. I don't know too much about it in the OG Superstar, I'll be honest, but I still really like it. So-called free thinkers, when they have Suplex, must spam pinpoint kick. I mean, it's got stuff. Suplex got some moves. All right, but I guess while we're at it, let's do Wrestler. You guys are really getting a lot of the upper mid abilities out of the way, huh? I actually put this one above Suplex, but still below water. I was thinking about high tier Wrestler. I was really thinking about it, But what really stopped me from doing it is that it's only in Kirby Fighters 2. And we'll see a fair amount of abilities that have only appeared in 1 or 2 games be higher than this. But it not being in a traditional Kirby platformer kind of held it back for me. I really hope Wrestler comes back. We could be looking at a top tier ability for me if it does actually show up in Kirby and the Forgotten Land 2 or the next Kirby 2D game, whatever. I really love Wrestler. I think it's really silly. It's got absolutely some of the most insane shmicks in all of Kirby Fighters 2, and I would love to see how they implement that into a 3D game. I know it's kind of tricky because it borrows from Suplex and I guess Backdrop to an extent. Not really Throw, but it borrows from Suplex and Backdrop. Suplex already borrows so much from Backdrop. Wrestler is just so cool. I love all the moves that it can do. I love the theming of it. When you pick the alt for it that has the lion, when you do certain attacks with it, you can literally hear it do like a lion roar. It's so cool. I love... It feels like one of the few abilities in Kirby Fighters 2 that has, I don't know if it actually has really good frame data, but it feels like it has good frame data. You hit a button and it feels like things come out right away. It doesn't feel like a lot of the other abilities that you hit a button, you have to wait for it because they tried to balance the abilities. It just feels very rewarding, very instant, very responsive. I like it a lot. Of course, I know I said the theming with the lion and everything, but just the base, Kirby being a wrestler and just doing these pile drive kicks, these suplexes, these backdrops. I know we have a backdrop already, but there you go, more inspiration. It's so cool, and even has a few moves that are unique of its own, that aren't borrowed from Suplex or Backdrop or Throw. Well, it doesn't have anything from Throw, but you know what I mean. It's a great homage ability while also having some things on its own. It's not like Festival that's really only there as a celebration kind of thing. No, Wrestler has a lot more going for it. I just really wish it was in more games than only Kirby Fighters 2, but as soon as we get it in a traditional game, 2D or 3D, if it's this fun, or even half this fun, easy top tier ability. I love Wrestler a lot. It just could do to be in more than Kirby Fighters 2, if you catch my drift. Okay, all right, Ball is the first one that I saw 2 votes for, so we're gonna go Ball. So, in my heart, right? In my heart of hearts, in my heart of puppy hearts, I want it here. I really want it here. But in good conscience, I can't. I can put it here and I will. So obviously I'm puppy, right? So there's a ball and all I can think of is I want to chase this thing. But no. It is only in Adventure and Nightmare. If you want to count Dream Course and Canvas Curse, you know, you absolutely can. But for the sake of this, I'm not going to. Ball as it is, I think it's fun in Adventure. It's still really good. I still really like it. But there's nothing about it that screams to me like, wow, this is insane. But because of Nightmare and Dreamland, it boosts up so much higher. It is so strong in Nightmare. I tried to do the mini boss rush, the 7-Rainbow Resort 2, where you fight, I forget what the not super order is, but you fight Bonkers, then Fan, then Bugsy, then Fire Lion. I tried doing it without Ball, and the whole time I'm just thinking, like, why am I not just using Ball here? It's so strong. It decimates bosses and mini bosses. It's so heckin' powerful. And then, you know, you use it for levels and you think, oh, this is going to be worthless for levels. Like, it's a ball. Who would want this? Kirby, Nightmare and Dreamland and Adventure as well. It works for both. They have a lot of sections of levels where you're just moving down and that's all you're doing. And Ball is, I would probably say, the best ability for those outside of maybe Stone. Just because it kills everything. It just kills everything. And unlike Stone, you know, you're not kind of left in an awkward spot when you fall out of it. Like in Adventure, you freeze for like a quick second. It's just the game catching up, but you keep your momentum. And in Nightmare, you don't even do that freeze. You keep your momentum really, really well. Something that I've always really liked doing with Ball, more so in Nightmare than in Adventure. It works in Adventure, but it just feels more satisfying in Nightmare. If you get a max bounce ready and you bounce to the very top, it depends on if there's a ceiling or not. I guess regardless, you can do it like right before you reach the top. Let go of Ball, and Kirby will keep their momentum, and they'll actually float in the air for a little while before falling down. And if you're near ground, you can just do Ball again, and you'll fall far enough to where you can repeat it over and over. It's really fun. Oh, in Adventure, it's got RNG manip. If you beat Rainbow Resort 6 and then reset the game, you can use RNG manipulation to get like a perfect quick kill with Ball against Day-to-Day. There's so much little stuff to do with Ball, and it's so strong, and it's so much fun to move around. I want Ball back in a 3D game so badly. There are abilities that you only see in 1 or 2 games that are going to place pretty high just because there's so much fun, and Ball is one of those. I love Ball. I want to see how many people in chat are calling me puppy-coded right now. Broke, lol, Ball bad. Whoa, Kirby be ballin'. I didn't even think about Kirby be ballin'. I still don't think it's top tier, but I might have to move Ball up. I don't know. I'm gonna have to move ball up. I don't know. The ball is the ability I suck at, but yeah, it's great. No, ball is one of those things that's like, I totally understand why people have a hard time with it and why people... There's a lot of speedrunning stuff that I'm like, open your eyes. Like, when people see, like, the wing dash attack for the first time, I'm like, are you really surprised this is good? But ball is one of those ones that I absolutely understand why people are, like, a little more iffy on it. I like opening their eyes to balls, personally. But if you're not into ball, like, I get it. All right, so drill is the only one that I've seen 2 of, so we'll do drill next. Come to me, drill. You are the drill that will pierce the heavens, blah, blah, blah. I like drill a lot. I really, really like drill. Chat's already said it. Drill against bosses is so good, and it's so much fun, too. If it was just really good, that wouldn't necessarily mean that I like it. You know, there are a fair few abilities, actually, that do pretty well against bosses that I just don't like. It's similar to something that I like about something like Chain Bomb in Forgotten Land, how it really takes advantage of the 3D aspect while still requiring strategy with how to use them. I feel like there's so much room for improvement over the basic ideas that you have. You know, Chain Bomb, obviously you want to chain a bunch of bombs together. What's the most efficient way that you can do that? Whereas with drill, it's more a matter of how wide can I make this circle? What shapes can we make with this circle? I don't remember which runner it was, but there was a runner who, in coming up with an idea for making drill, like, the max power, they would do it in the shape of a heart, and that was just, to them, it really clicked. I like that a lot. That, I feel like, is so expressive. I'm very big on freedom of expression with copy abilities, so imagining somebody saying, oh, how do you get max power drill against bosses, and them saying, you make a little heart, and then it'll do max strength. Like, that's so cool to me. Not to mention Drill's dash attack in the air, super good. Not to mention Drill being able to burrow underground to get treasures like a tomato, which I at least use in my any percent runs. Obviously, for something like all Waddle Dees, you're gonna want it, but really my big complaints with it are Dream Buffet. It would be a lot higher if it wasn't. I really wish it wasn't in Dream Buffet. I don't get it. I don't. I get the idea of what they went for with the baseline, but I've used it in the training mode. Again, I've never used it in a match. I get the point of every other ability, even high jump, which you don't want to use high jump if you want to win the bonus rounds at the end. But with drill, I'm thinking, what is the point here? There's no point to it. If there's some, like, niche thing it has, if you're far behind in a race, then I'd just rather get the candy. I don't want drill. Drill is in Dream Buffet? Exactly. Exactly. I forgot drill was in Dream Buffet? Exactly. Now let's just get tornado out of the way. A few people want to see tornado, so let's just do tornado. Yeah, we have it above ball. A few games that it's in, it's not my cup of tea. I'll stand by this. I think it's just straight up bad in Nightmare, which is a real crying shame considering how overpowered it is in Adventure. Similar to how I'm not counting Canvas Curse or Dream Course or whatever for ball, I'm not going to count Kubla's Parasol for tornado. That would just be a Parasol thing. It's a really fun ability, and the games that I thoroughly enjoy it in, I do thoroughly enjoy it in. My big problem with Tornado, aside from Nightmare and Dreamland, I forget if it's in Amazing Mirror. I'm not crazy about it in Squeak Squad, but I know a lot of casuals are. My big thing with Tornado, outside of Adventure, where it breaks them to shreds, I do not like Tornado against bosses. It's one of my personal least favorite abilities to use against them. I think the only real exception that I can think of off the top of my head is Landia, because of how Tornado works with the crown, how you get all those hits in against Landia's weak point. But outside of that, I'm trying to think of any bosses where I look at Tornado and I'm so enthused to use it. I can't really think of any. But as far as movement goes, it is definitely one of my favorites. I really like it in the return games, especially. Obviously, Adventure is where it shines. That's my favorite Tornado out of all of them. It's so broken. I talk about Tornado and Adventure so much. But again, there's a few things. And just in general, I don't really like using it in Nightmare. I think it's an Amazing Mirror now that I'm thinking about it, but I really can't remember, which I think goes to show, like, this is a good spot for it. I like it here. Oh, you know what? I actually didn't bring this up. It's awful in Air Ride. It is awful in Air. It's actually, like, terrible in Air Ride. It's completely worthless. Other than Sleep, it is, like, by far the worst ability. Sword's a lot better. Needle's a lot better. Fire's a lot better. Well, maybe not a lot better. Actually, it's better than Ice. I'll give you that. It's better than Ice, I guess, but Tornado's not good in Air Ride. Patience for the puppy. Thank you, Wolfgang. Thank you. Let's do Balloon. Let's do Balloon. A few people bought up Balloon, so let's do it. I have Balloon. I like it. I do like it. I think my big problem with Balloon is that when it's useful in Canvas Curse, it's really fun. When the game deems that you are allowed to use it, it's really fun. And the speedrun / line trial challenges for Balloon might be my favorites. The problem is that it's in Canvas Curse, and I love Canvas Curse, but the problem is that it's in Canvas Curse, and this is a game where when you exit a level, you lose your ability. And that's the only game that Balloon is in. It doesn't get to leave much of an impression because of that. Again, I really like it. And when the game deems you worthy of being able to use an ability as insane as Balloon, I really like it. It's fun. I like seeing Kirby go chunky. I like the vertical boost that it gives. I like when you pair it with drawing lines, you get insane speed boosts. There's a lot of tech with it that's really fun, especially when you're big. It is just never around, and it is only in one game, and that game is a game where when you're normal Kirby, you can go very, very fast. It's got a lot working against it, but when you got it and you're using it, I thoroughly enjoy it, especially like the speedrun and ink challenges. I do like the idea of doing the limited use ones. Let me just get them all together so it's a little easier. All right, so we'll just do in the order that I threw them in here. Let's start with paint. Paint, no surprise, not gonna be very high. It's actually only going in low. The reason I put paint in low is because when you use it against Heavy Lobster, either of the Superstar games, but I prefer the Dialogue and Ultra, the Mennonites lose their mind. It's so funny. What paint ability, you say? Heavy Lobster can't tell his left from his right now. Ressa, flessa, bressa. I love it. I love it so much. That's it. That's all that paint has. Otherwise, it is completely forget. I guess it changes the color of Chameleon too. Like if Chameleon is blue, you can use paint and it'll become a random color. If it's invisible, it'll become a random color. That's like a cute touch, but at the same time, why do that when you can just beat the fight? Like Heavy Lobster is actually something substantial. I really like it. I think it's kind of the importance of not so much story, but storytelling in Kirby. Why it is important, even though story in Kirby is so light. Speaking of light, though, we got light next. I don't think this should come as a particular surprise that I'm going to rank light very, very low. I won't tell you it's my least favorite copy ability in the series, but I'm going to rank it very, very low. I do not like light. Even as a kid, I remember thinking, why am I lighting up this dark room? I thought the dark rooms just looked really cool. I didn't want them lit up. And then when I lit them up, I remember thinking, oh, okay. And that's more so Nightmare. I think in Adventure, the color palette when you light a room up is a little bit better, but still absolutely not worth it. The only thing that I can give light is that the enemy that it gives you light, I forget what it's called, but the cool ghost with sunglasses, I like the design. But I also feel like you could just throw sunglasses on anything and it would be cool. As for Mike, yeah, it's not looking good for the single-use ability squad. I'm actually not going to move it. It's staying right here. It is staying in the bottom tier. It is slightly more interesting than your standard because you get 3 uses out of it. The problem is that I at least only ever use these against boss fights, and using 3 attacks against 1 boss does the exact same thing as just doing it once. It just wastes my time. Now, what I will give Mike, what I don't like it for gameplay, I do like Chesto. Chesto is funny. That's about all I will give it. I do not like Mike. Is Festival next? Yep, Festival is next. And what a surprise, we are not moving Festival. I like it more than I like Light. I like it less than I like Mike. The thing with Festival that, if you were to ask me this before Return to Dreamland Deluxe came out, I would actually put it below. Like, this was like, when Starlights came out, I actually was like, I hate this. This is the one copy ability that I'm like, I actually hate this, unironically, in all regards. I just hate it. Then they bought it back for Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and it's like, oh, it's Festival. So it's a celebratory ability to celebrate Kirby in a more meta sense, while also having a cute little dance that in Return Deluxe you can have Magalore join in on. Like, okay, that's cute. I still don't like it, and I never will. I think this is still a waste of space. Like, I would rather any other ability almost. But it's cute. We're not going to do Crash yet. Actually, I'm going to move Crash here just because we're not going to do it yet. Cook, I'm not moving. It's staying there. If you were to ask me this before Return Deluxe came out, I would have done this. But Return Deluxe came out, so now I do this. I feel nothing about Cook. I think it is a cute idea. That's the extent of it. If I were to rank Kawasaki, I didn't rank Kawasaki, but Kawasaki would be a lot higher. But because we're just looking at Kirby, I feel nothing. Yeah, okay, so Crash. Let's talk about Crash for a minute. There's a reason I'm saving Crash for last. Interestingly enough, I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but interestingly enough, Crash is actually speedrun viable in a pretty decent amount of games. And even outside of speedrunning, there's a lot of really creative uses you can use with Crash, like some of the more obvious ones, like in the Superstar games, using it in Great Cave to hit switches that you can't with most abilities. So you got stuff like that. Before I say anything else, this one will come as a surprise. I absolutely believe that this one is going to come as a surprise, but I am putting Crash in the upper mid. I really like it. I really like Crash. This, Crash to me is the go-to, and even before we talk about speedrunning, let's talk about why Crash works as a single-use ability. Something like Light or Cook, I guess maybe Festival is fine because you're just doing a little dance, but when you're done with them, you're like, oh. When you use Crash, especially in the modern games where it got that charge attack, where, I mean, you can do the regular Crash and it's still a big deal, but you charge it up and the ground starts shaking. It's like Kirby is so powerful, they're shaking the essence of the earth, and then this giant nuclear explosion happens. It feels like it should be single use. It's got Nightmare in Dreamland in that Crash video that I recently put out. It's got the wordplay. Don't forget that. If you mix it with Copy in Milky Way Wishes, you can actually get Crash in Milky Way Wishes, which allows for some funny stuff that you can do. There's a lot about Crash that I think is really, really cool that none of these other single-use abilities even come close to replicating. Crash is the only one that actually feels like it takes advantage of the fact that it's... And how did I forget to bring up Time Crash? I know we're not really talking about the upgrades, but I'm not going to count this. But I have to bring up Time Crash. 1, because I love A Hat in Time. 2, it's awesome. No way, Klaire is a Light hater. I am a Light disliker. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch for Animal, so let's cover Animal. I don't think you guys are going to like this one, but let's talk about Animal. I'm trying to find... Okay, here it is. Animal, to me, I know it's a fan favorite. A lot of people like it. It would have been in Battle Royale if Sleep wasn't a meme. It's fine. I think Animal is fine. It's cute, and that's a big part of why I like to put it really high. My problem with it is that it never really feels right to use. I think this is more of a Squeak Squad problem than an Animal problem because of how weird Squeak Squad is with dash attacks. If I am dashing and I don't come to a complete standstill before doing another attack, I'll do the dash attack that I don't like, the command grab one. I don't like that move. The normal default scratch is fine, and the aerial dash attack is cool. First of all, you can't go up. I wish you could go up with it. I don't know why they don't let you just go up with it. You can only go left, right, and down. But more to the point, it is kind of... I've always found it hard to pull off, I'll be honest. I always found, just in general, dash attacks, that's why the fire in Squeak Squad, for example, yeah, it has burning in it, but it's always been weird to me. Well, kind of why I prefer something like Wheel or High Jump that is really fast but doesn't have a dash attack. It's never been in another game. It's just Squeak Squad. So all I have is this really middling ability that I don't actually care about, but it's cute. So that's enough for me. That's enough for me if we put it in mid. Yeah, maybe if it was actually just more like what I have, where it's just like Kirby got hair and ears, I'd probably like it. Obviously nothing against furries, but you know, I have my preferences, and that's just the ears, but that's just me. What makes you like Drill much more than Animal? Oh, so many things. There's so many reasons. Drill is so much more creative, so much more fun, so much more stylish, so much more silly. It's got a dash attack I can actually use. Well, Squeak Squad ability specifically, but it looks like we're talking about Ghost. So let's talk about Ghost. Yay! Ghost. Ghost is low tier. I like it more than I like Paint. My big thing with Ghost is the aesthetic of it. I adore the aesthetic. Like, we're talking about, like, this is like the extreme of Animal. I actually like the Ghost aesthetic more than the Animal one, but using it, I like way less. This, it's the same problem as Paint, where it's just supposed to be this cool reward that you can unlock that lets you control enemies. That's such a cool idea. Who cares if Ghost Kirby's movement is really slow, right? Because when you control an enemy, there's so much you can do. And then almost every enemy you control is just as slow, and they can't go out of doors. You have to unlock it. Well, unlocking it is fine, I guess, but just the conditions around using it, given it's supposed to be this nifty reward. I don't think the Kirby series is bad at handling rewards. I think they're bad at handling copy ability rewards. But what I could give Ghost is that in the Superstar games, it is crucial for practicing Gourmet Race. Because, well, I guess not Superstar, because it's not Ghost Kirby, but in Ultra, they made it Ghost Kirby. And for Superstar Ultra, Ghost is kind of goated. As somebody who's practice score may race course 3 specifically a lot with like Parasol, Ghost for that is very good. Okay, one person voted Bubble, and then the Magic votes came flooding in. I understand it. Magic is a really cool ability visually. I'll say this, for Amazing Mirror, I think nothing of it, because it's like whatever. In Amazing Mirror, like it's fine, I guess. But in Squeak Squad, I like it a lot. I mean, I gotta drag it down a little bit because it is an Amazing Mirror, and I really don't like it in Amazing Mirror. But upper mid, we're going upper mid. I think we're going upper mid for this one, gamers, and that's because in Squeak Squad, this ability is so much fun. The clown attack, even when I was a kid, I'm doing this clown attack, right? And I'm like, this shreds boss health bars. This is so strong. It's got a lot of great attacks. It's got the doves, it's got the cards, obviously that clown attack from earlier. I think it has a couple other stuff too. I'm pretty sure you could charge it. This might be the ability scroll, but I think if you charge it, it turns into Amazing Mirror Magic, which is really fun. I might be thinking of it wrong, but that's a great nod if you can do that. A good way to keep the spirit of the original, even though the original stunk. A great aesthetic, too. I love the sprite of the magic hat actually covering one of Kirby's eyes, so it makes Kirby look more of a mysterious magician, even though they're Kirby. What mystery is here to begin with, right? Overall, I just think it's a really fun ability. Limited in its mobility, which holds it back for speedrunning, but not really for me. If we're playing a game where Kirby's run speed by default is fine, I don't take too many issues with no mobility in my copy ability, and Squeak Squad movement is fast enough, so good enough for me. So let's talk about Bubble. Let's talk about Bubble. If you've never heard me talk about Bubble, I know this one's going to surprise you, but if you have heard me talk about Bubble, you're probably a little bit prepared. I love it. I love Bubble, and like nobody agrees with me on this, but I think Bubble is so cool. And it's like 2 attacks, right? But there's such good attacks. The regular... Okay, all right, let me say this with Bubble. The sound effects, when you use it, it's like you're blowing bubbles, but it's DS Sound Crunch. Another thing that I really love about Bubble is that it actually takes proper use, or it takes proper advantage of, rather, the bottom screen mechanic of Squeak Squad with the bubbles. It is actually, unlike really the other abilities, you can argue that Animal takes advantage of the environment, but that's such a nothing thing in Squeak Squad, if we're being honest. But Bubble actually takes advantage of the main gimmick of Squeak Squad, which is the bottom screen storing bubbles down there. And it can actually be pretty useful for getting abilities to put down there. I know for the sake of speedrunning, you don't really have the time quite. But if I'm not I know you use Bubble in 100%. You use Bubble a couple of times. I don't know if you ever use it to store abilities on the bottom screen to set up for mixes. And let's talk casually. You can get whatever ability you want without having to track down the bubble. And you could say, oh, well, you could go to that center world area where all the abilities are stored. And it's like, you don't get that for a long time. You get Bubble in the second world of the game. Now, let's not stop there. Let's talk about Bubble's ability scroll. It's a dash attack. You twirl your little wand back, and then you let out a bubble, and it makes DS compressed bubble blowing sounds. It's really strong. It's super powerful. Even those super bulky, big Sword Knight enemies, it like 2 or 3 shots them, which is nearly unheard of. Those things take so many hits. There's just a lot for me to really love about Bubble. Again, it doesn't really do much for mobility, but for me personally, so long as this Kirby game has good movement speed, then I'm fine with it. If we're talking about, let's say Kirby 64 had an ability that was completely unique to it, right? And it didn't have anything to help you move, that would bother me. But it doesn't, so oopsie doops. Bubble is interesting, but I feel like it doesn't get much use, save for the bubble wand going through walls. It does that too. I actually forgot about that. Thank you for bringing that up, Curb1. Thank you. It goes through walls. You can use it to break bomb blocks. It's genuinely really helpful for that. Forgot about Metal. Okay, I don't know if Aston is still here or not, but pretty much have Aston solely to thank for this placement. But unironically, Metal's pretty goated. I think Metal's pretty goated. So if you know me, you're probably like, how could you? Metal is super slow. It's super weak. It doesn't hurt bosses. It literally does nothing. How could you do this? So there are a lot of abilities that are weak, right? But they're your regular garden bred variety weak. Staff, for example. Staff bothered me because it has moves. And they're all slow. So they don't do anything. They're weak, but they're there. Metal is so far off the deep end. It's so bad. It's so bad that it becomes funny for me. Granted, Metal percent is the reason why it's this high. Metal percent being a speedrun category that enough people have ran is a miracle.
At the same time, I gotta admit, this is a me thing, but I think Metal is really cute. Kirby as Metal, I think is really cute. I've never been able to describe it. When you do the sitting attack where you're in the air and Metal Kirby just falls to the ground, does that little sitting down pose, that's like one of my favorite Kirby sprites in the series. I don't know. I don't know why I think it's so cute, but it's adorable and I really like it. I just think it's really cute. And that's it. That's what I have to say about Metal. Speedrun Metal %. It's like the funniest joke. For real. For real. That's the best answer. That's the best answer I could have. It's the best response I could have gotten when putting Metal. So I actually see more votes for Beam than anything else. Wow, you couldn't let Metal enjoy its time in the top 5, huh? Now Beam doesn't place like super high for me. I do really like it, but it doesn't place super high. I have it actually above Drill. All right, Beam is actually going to be a lengthy one. This is our first lengthy one in a while, chat. I actually have stuff to say about Beam because it's been in so many games. I do have to dock points for Beam because I can't ever think of a situation where it's been super good for speedrunning. But the problem with that isn't just it's not good for speedrunning. It's not a Needle situation where it's outclassed. It's just not typically very good. I mean, something like Fighters 2, I guess you could say it's outclassed, but still good. Something like the Kirby Clash games, you could also say that it's good. Well, okay, actually, Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, it's very good. Super Kirby Clash, not so much. At least as far as what the current metas are, because in Super Kirby Clash, your stats just get so inflated, you can get away with just soloing Hammer, with very occasional uses of Beam Mage. I think Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, because you can only reach level 10, your stats don't get inflated enough. So you're actually stuck using Beam, plus you can't do, what's it called? Party quests if you run out of EXP or Vigor or whatever. If you're doing an optimal playthrough, I don't really see, or an optimized playthrough maybe, I don't really see the point of using Beam in any game, and it doesn't have something like the Metal factor going for it where it is a meme. I call it a meme, but it's not. It doesn't have something like Bubble where it has these really cool random uses even if you're not going to quite see it in a run. You do, but even if you didn't see it, you know. Beam feels underwhelming to me sometimes, but I can't hide the fact that when I play Superstar and I run and I jump and I do that dash attack, I have a lot of fun. I can't deny that getting the command grab with Beam and shooting an enemy into the air diagonally, like really diagonally, is fun. I can't deny that Revolution Beam is one of my favorite moves in the series, and the fact that they got rid of it drives me up a wall. I think Beam actually could find a way to make it to the top tier if it had anything to do for speedruns, but it doesn't. Also, we don't count it. Unfortunately, we don't count this, but Rick plus Spark in Dreamland 2, which is basically Beam, that's actually probably one of the best classic Beams that we've ever gotten. Especially because you need it for a Rainbow Drops. You need Rick plus Spark for a Rainbow Drop, so you're going to have it anyway. It's just very helpful for playing safe. Beam just is not for me. It's not a meme, but Beam Attack is a meme, I guess. I guess it is a meme. Starlight's Beam is definitely my favorite Beam. That one, I had a lot of fun doing Soul Melter EX with Beam. That was a really good time. I was a Beam Mage main in both Kirby Clash games. It's good. If you're going for, like, easy IGT clears, it's good. I used to think that it was the best, and apparently Kirby Clash Deluxe, you know, it's, like, all over any %. But Super Kirby Clash kind of realized that it's like, well, if you want, like, max quick clears, Hammer is, like, absurdly strong. It's better than Doctor. It's better than Dr. Healmore. Dr. Healmore is... I still think Dr. Healmore is useless, but... It was close, but there's definitely a preference towards Copy right now, so we'll do Copy. There it is. Okay. I'm like, where the heck did I put Copy? I found it, though. Not a lot of people agree with me on this, but I'm going to put it here because I really like Copy for Milky Way Wishes. I like having this option. Copy is just really good for Milky Way Wishes playthroughs where you don't want to go after, you just want to, you know, play it like a regular Kirby game, which I find enjoyment in. I know the whole point of Milky Way Wishes is that you're not playing it like a normal Kirby game, but the fact that you can play it like a normal Kirby game is what I think is so much fun. Niche uses, but I have fun with it outside. It's got no speedrun applicability, like absolutely none. Tack does. Tack is really good for speedrunning KSS, but Tack is not Kirby, so it doesn't count. It's also in Superstar Ultra. That's like my favorite game ever, so... I don't know. We'll do Mecha. Not the most experience with it because I don't play Return Deluxe like a lot, but I do enjoy my time with Mecha. Mecha goes right here in the upper mid. Mecha is super fun. I actually wasn't thinking too much of it until I did the challenge stage, and I saw, wow, you can do a lot with this ability. It's really cool. I really like hovering in the air and doing the down B in the air to drop the sensor bomb. Kind of gives you a little bit of a boost if you need to go a little bit higher, but you don't want to be too reckless. Your movement when hovering is really, really fast. I don't know if it's faster than Return Deluxe's run. Definitely faster than the originals. I don't know about Deluxe's. But you're in the air, so you don't have to worry about ledges and cliffs and stuff like that. So you get a lot more freedom of movement with Mecha that way. I guess you do got to be a little bit careful for things like spikes and airborne enemies, but Mecha has so many options. I really like its move kit. I think what my problem with it is that hovering is fun, but it's pretty mindless for me. And when it comes to combat, I'm not super crazy about it. It's fun to use, though. I'm not trying to diss on it too hard. And there's just also the natural fact that I'm not the most well-versed with Return Deluxe. I do really like Return Deluxe, but it's just a matter of... I said it in the K-Star video. My brain is an SSD of a Wii. I don't know anything about Return Deluxe compared to Return to Dreamland. I could tell you everything about the Return to Dreamland abilities, but Mecha and Sand, I'm not as much of an expert on, shall we say. But it's still a really fun ability. I still thoroughly enjoy using it. One of the most memorable parts for Mecha for me was its comically lengthy pause screen moveset pages. Yeah, there's so many. It's like, what the heck? Okay, I see 2 for Sand. That's good enough. Good enough for Puppy. Cool. So this one might also just be because I'm a little less versed with Return Deluxe than most other games, but Sand is honestly pretty mid to me. I get the appeal of it because it shreds bosses. This is mostly an aesthetic thing. It's an aesthetic thing because I don't care too much for the visuals of Sand, except for the sandcastle. I love the sandcastle. Everything else is just pretty, like, iffy to me. I guess visually it's impressive how much detail they put into the hat, but, like, whatever. Parasol doesn't have a hat. Look what I think of that. I really like beating bosses, doing boss quick clears, stuff like that, but I don't like it this mindless necessarily. I mean, if you want full optimization, of course, with any ability, you have to think. But on average, it's a little too, even for Puppy, I think it's a little too brain off, a little too mindless, a little too no thoughts, head empty. But it's fun. I don't think it's a bad ability by any means. I still enjoy using it, but so many of these abilities have the problem where if they're only in one game and I'm not super into them, then I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't feel too strongly about them. Which also just means I don't have a lot to say. But as for Laser, so actually at the start, I had Laser like somewhere up here, but the more I thought about it, the more I like finalized the list, the more I'm like, there's really not that much you can do with it. I mean, it has the wall bouncing properties, and those are fun. Those are really fun. But outside of that, that's kind of it. I like it. I like the sound effect in Adventure, and I like how quickly you can shoot it out in Amazing Mirror. Amazing Mirror kind of bothers me with this one, though, because they made it a lot weaker. It was already super weak, but they made it a lot weaker than it was in the previous 2 games because they let you shoot it out faster. And I'm just here thinking, why did you make it weaker? It's basically the same thing. It's just, you know, now when I mash the button, I guess it feels a little better. It feels better when you're not using it on bosses, but it feels much worse when you're using it on bosses now. And as far as the Nightmare and Adventure go, I feel like you have so many options against bosses. I suppose this one's supposed to be more of a, oh, well, if you're new to the game and you don't want to get hit, you have this full screen projectile. It's not the strongest, but you don't have to worry about getting hit because you're so far away. It's like, oh yeah, Adventure, the game that you really gotta struggle thinking of an ability that you're gonna be safe using. Same with Amazing Mirror. Like, oh no, a game that has UFO that you can take out of levels. Or we're talking about speedruns like Wheel and Hammer and Smash and Stone and Parasol and all these crazy abilities. It is fun though. I do thoroughly enjoy Laser still. I think Amazing Mirror, despite what I said, Amazing Mirror has to be my favorite Laser though, just because of how quickly you can rapid fire it. It's not like the Nightmare and Adventure ones where you use it, there's a little bit of end leg, and then you can do it again. It is literally pew, 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 pew. Yo, that is a raid. I just like how quickly you can go pew, pew, pew. It's so fast. It's so fast. All right, so Beetle. Good news for all you Crash fans out there. Beetle is actually below it, so Crash is not the bottom of upper mid anymore. I really like its dash attack, not so much for movement. It doesn't feel that fast, especially because of all the end leg at the end. It just feels really nice. One, in terms of having a lot of invincibility on it, but also just in terms of a dash attack that can grab enemies, especially multiple enemies. I really like it for mini boss fights. I found that doing it for boss fights in Star Allies wound up causing a lot of frustration. It was just really, really weak. And it kind of got on my nerves before long because here I am with abilities like Beam doing so much, and then Beetle is like a weaker Suplex, which is already pretty bad. But in the exchange, Beetle actually had other moves that it could use. That's why Beetle was much less stressful. But it's doing less damage on average than Suplex. I'm thinking, really? That's not good. I guess it's better against mini-bosses and bosses in Triple Deluxe than Star Allies, but I still mostly like it for mini-bosses and Triple Deluxe. Bosses, I still find it just be a tad bit too weak. I get what they were going for. It's a mobile grappler kind of ability that also, again, it's mobile. It's not stuck in one place like an ability like Suplex. Yeah, Suplex can do the dash attack, but that has end leg on it. It's not the most safe. It's got some problems of its own. Whereas Beetle is more consistently usable. It just doesn't deal the same amount of strength that it does on average. But I don't know. I just found it very weak. I would, generally speaking, much prefer Suplex's individual bursts of damage compared to Beetle's more all-around weaker hits. Although I do like Beetle in Star Allies more than I like Suplex in Star Allies. I like Suplex in Star Allies fine, but that... Soul Melter EX Run was something else. Beetle's was also pretty annoying, but once I just kind of gave up on trying to do something that wasn't the dash attack, it was a lot better. But then it became the problem of you're just using the dash attack. Carrying an enemy around in your horn? Okay, something I love doing with Beetle, unironically. It's useless, but command grabbing an enemy from up close so you don't throw them away right away, and then walking backwards. Kirby does a moonwalk. I think it looks really silly and really funny. I like it. Battle Royale Beetle, I forgot about that. Battle Royale Beetle is really fun. Anyways, I think I'm gonna take the helm on this one. It's been a minute. It's probably the last one I take the helm on. It's just, we just came back, so I figure let's get momentum started right away. Staff, oh boy. Okay, so if you were to ask me this question a few months ago, I would probably tell you that Staff would be in, like, this ballpark here. Maybe here, but probably around here. Then I did the Star Allies Soul Melter EX challenge, and I actually got to properly use Staff. Outside of some fringe KF2 use as well, and let me tell you, this ability is not it. I do not like this ability. I do not like this ability. It is slow. It is weak. It has attacks that are strong, but they put you in a terrible situation when you use them. It is not conducive to how Kirby boss fight rushes usually go, and I guess you could say that makes it unique, but it is not very good at doing what it is being unique for, thus I do not enjoy it. I guess if I had to pick, I like it more in Star Allies than I do in Fighters 2. I feel like in Fighters 2, I can't do anything with it. It just feels really bad to use in KF2. In Star Allies, it doesn't feel like I can do anything with it either, but at least there's more room for me to, like, run away and use it to poke at enemies. You know, it's not, I mean, no, that's not a problem with KF2, it's a Staff problem. It's got the counter. I like the counter. I think that's it. I don't think I need to tell you why the counter being the only move that I like is a problem, but just in case, you need to get hit, or you need to be about to get hit in order to use the counter. And this isn't like normal Kirby, where it creates this interesting situation where you gotta factor in strength versus speed, you know? It's just not as interesting, and there's not much that I like about Staff. I am kind of glad that I did that Soul Melter EX run because it really put into context how little I knew about Staff. Every other ability, you know, I got something, but Staff, I just kind of never did, but figured it's fine, and then I got to see firsthand, oh my gosh, this is not fine. I do not like this. I don't put it in the bottom because I look at Festival, right? I definitely don't think it's as bad as Festival, not even close. So I put it in the tier above it because I like it a lot less than Balloon also. Ghost has the aesthetic, so does Paint, but Staff has actual utility to it. It's a tiny bit. You gotta really squint. You gotta hurt your eyes in order to see it, but it's there. Staff Melter EX. Yeah, it's Staff melted me. Well, I guess we've been talking about Mirror long enough. I guess we could finally rank Mirror. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't ranked Mirror yet, being perfectly honest. But I think it's pretty mid. I do think it's pretty mid. Mid by the standards of, you know, a Kirby ability tier. Like, literally the tier list. Mid to me does not mean what it does to a lot of people. It literally means, like, mid, not bad. But Mirror, I think it's good. I know a lot of people were really happy to see it come back in Planet Robobot, and I was too, but the more I use it in Planet Robobot, the more I'm so upset with how not very good it is. I will give Mirror this. In Kirby Superstar, I don't think much of it. In Superstar Ultra, I think it's fun to use for the boss rush. Does not make me feel very much for the levels. Planet Robobot, it makes me sad. Battle Royale, I think the charge attack is very good. I don't think it's quite broken or anything. It's no bomb, I'll say that. But it's really fun. I really like Mirror in Battle Royale. That's kind of the game that I feel like finally made Mirror click with me, which is good because, I mean, it was free DLC, don't get me wrong, but DLC all the same, it was an update. So I'm glad. It's not Sleep. It's not what Sleep did, but it's still really, really good. I just wish in the actual games, the traditional Kirby games, the Kirby Superstars, the Superstar Ultras, the Planet Robobots, it was more. I think what it is for me, it's not that I want it to have a momentum-based dash attack. I just want it to have a different dash attack. It splits into two and then goes back in. Really cool looking. It always lets me down. Every time I use it, something about it just feels off. I don't know if it's weaker than I think it should be. I don't know if it's because it doesn't go as far as I think it should. I don't know if it's because I think it should do 2 hits, and sometimes it does, but a lot of the times it doesn't. I don't know. Especially in Robobot. I figured by a Robobot they'd be able to have that fixed, but... And it's still, when you're talking optimal strats and stuff, you know, the dash attack is probably your best move in all of the games, except for Superstar, where it's the little pizza slice cutter thing. All this to say, Battle Royale based. But it's good. I mean, mid to me, for the sake of this tier list, is just good. Like, the middle of the road for me, for at least Kirby Copy Abilities, is good. Hi, YouTube! Alright, I shouldn't have opened my mouth. We could have gone even longer without an ability in the top, but where's Cutter? Where's Cutter? There it is. I'm holding my chest right now. I love Cutter so much. I love this ability. A lot of abilities that I really liked before getting into speedrunning, I already really liked. Cutter was the first one where, like, honestly, it would probably be around, like, this part, like, somewhere around here, maybe even above Mirror, maybe even below, like, Copy. I don't know. But then I got into speedrunning, and it's like, wow, you know, in, like, the modern games, this dash attack is, like, really fast. It's no fire, it's no wing, but, like, it's really fast. Then I started looking at, like, the Return to Dreamland boss rushes, and it's like, ooh, wow, you use the Cutter dive attack. You swish out the blade, and then you dive, and then you repeat that while timing it properly, because Return to Dreamland bosses have insane invulnerability for some reason. Then I did a Star Allies run, and I charged Cutter Throw, the fully charged whoosh. It's like, why does this do like 1,000,000 hits? That's super satisfying. And it's super safe, because I can just camp in this corner while they take 1,000,000 damage. It's super fast and super safe. Sign me up. Then I went back to some of the earlier games, like KDL 2, and it's like, wow, Coup with Cutter is insanely busted. This is broken. What were they thinking here? This is awesome. I love this. Then I got to, like, KSS and KSSU, where it's not quite as good as it is in something like, you know, something more modern, but it's still got plenty of tech of its own, and the dash attack in that game is pretty legit. Okay, I like this too. Then, like, you know, Kirby 64, you're looking at Hundo, all the things that you're allowed to do because you're going for 100%. You get to use stuff like Double Cutter. The lightsaber for 7-3, not 7-3, I'm sorry, Ripple Star 3. Use the lightsaber for Hundo. That's awesome. I love the lightsaber. I think even in any percent, you use the Flame Sword, which is part Cutter, for Magman, the World 4 boss, who is quite the design. That is the design of all time. I love him. But you get to get Cutters involved with that. Like, that's super cool. And then, of course, really what I'm building up to here is that already, you know, Cutter's already sneaking its way up to, you know, this ballpark here, right? Somewhere in between here. Then we talk about Planet Robobot. Then we talk about, if I'm remembering right, the 5th best ability. Because 4 is Doctor, 3 is Smash, 2 is Hammer, 1 is Ice. So yeah, Cutter would be number 5. It's unbelievable. It's so much. It's fun. It's stupid. It'll kill your hands. It's awesome. But even, so, I mean, that's like the speedrunning context, right? But casually speaking, have you ever thrown a Cutter blade in front of you, and as it's coming back, you jump over it? I've probably done that 1,000,000 times on stream. I'll probably, like, look at an enemy and be like, oh, they're so scary, and then do that. Or in later games where you get to angle it, like I know in Amazing Mirror, if you hold the button down, there is a GBA game where Cutter is actually very good in too. No, it's not that it's very good. It's a backup strat for Mega Titan. which Mega Titan sucks. So if you don't have wheel for it and Cutter is legitimately an amazing option that the game just gives you, that is invaluable. Because frick Mega Titan. There's so much for me to love about Cutter. No complaints. I guess if I had to give any form of complaint, I just wish it was broken in more games than just Planet Robobot. But it's fun in every game. One of the few abilities that I actually would recommend to a newcomer playing Adventure, not for a speedrun, for a casual playthrough, one of the very few abilities. I mean, Tornado's obviously at the top. You know, when a lot of people are saying things like, I really struggle with Adventure because I get hit a lot, which a lot of people get hit in Adventure, which is fair. But Cutter absolutely is a super safe ability to use, and it's not that bad either. Plus, you get to do the jump over thing I was talking about before. There's really not that many games where I don't like Cutter. The only one I can really think of is Dreamland 3. I can't think of any combination. No, I lied. Rick plus Cutter. I lied. Rick plus Cutter. I have an entire video on my channel of how many levels can you get through with the Rick Cutter thing, where this doesn't work in Dreamland 2. But in Dreamland 3, if you're Rick, you throw Kirby behind you and then you just book it forward. It's like the demonic Mario 64 one-up mushroom that a lot of, especially Japanese runners, I don't know if any US do it, I only hear from the Japanese, but anyway, where in Mario 64, they get the one-up and then they try to clear the level without getting that one-up. It's terrifying. That's literally what Kirby is for Rick. It's so much fun. It's so silly. There's so much for me to love about Cutter. I feel like it's an ability that just keeps on giving. The more I use it and the more I just look into what it can do, the more I find out about how amazing it is. And there's never a real downside. I mean, sure, there's times where it's not very optimal. There's times where it's not all that great. Some games where I would really rather not use it against bosses, right? But I mean, hey, look, I talk about using Cutter and Planet Robobot for bosses. What do you use against Day-to-Day in Dreamland 2? That's a classic game, and Cutter doesn't have anything. Cutter in Dreamland 2 has the swoosh. And you use it for Day-to-Day in KDL 2, so, like, it just rules. Cutter just rules. I love Cutter. I love Cutter. I'm not going to tell you, like, exactly where I'm going to place it, but even amongst the top tiers, it's absolutely one of my favorites. I love this ability so much. It felt good talking about, like, a top-tier ability, too. Even, like, compared to the high tiers. Like, I absolutely, like, to me, Cutter is a whole different level of super fun and amazing compared to Tornado, even. Okay, you know what? I'm going to make an exception. We'll do Bomb, but before that, we're going to do Jelly, because this is going to be really quick. Jelly is going to be really fast. Unfortunately, for all you Jelly fans out there, I would just straight up put it in low, above Ghost, but I would just straight up put it in low. It's cute. I love the design, and as is with literally everything about Dream Buffet, it looks amazing. It makes you move faster. That's a nice perk, but it's similar to Wrestler and how I want to put it higher, but I can't because it's just kind of stuck in a spin-off. Jelly is like that, but way less fun. Like, Dream Buffet abilities, I think, are fun, but Jelly is like, you can't take damage and you move faster, and you go under the cookie walls, but you kind of want to try to crumble for the bonus points at the end. But, I mean, hey, look, if you're behind, it helps. We got something that short for Bomb. Ooh, man, okay. Before I say anything, let's rank it first. Okay. Now, let's talk Bomb. Let's talk Bomb. I think Bomb is the only ability, and I know how this is going to sound. You're going to point out a very obvious exception, and it's not an exception. There's actually a game I don't like that ability in. But I think Bomb is the only ability where I'm, like, mesmerized by it in every single game. Like KSS, Katam, Kasquick, Kasisu, Kurtidal, Kurtidix, Kapur, Kasa, Kaful. Trying to think of the spin-offs now. What spin-off is Bomb in? Kabur. I don't know why I'm saying these like this, but every game that Bomb is in, I love it. Homing Bomb, I'm not thrilled with, I'll admit, but, I mean, we're not really counting upgrades, and if we are counting upgrades, then Homing Bomb, I'm not thrilled with. Chain Bomb is my favorite ability in the game. I think it is the most fun to strategize with. I think it is the most rewarding to use properly. I think it, by far, has the most fun ability solo challenge for the Ultimate Cups, all three of them. I think that in levels, it can still have fringe uses. The Chain Bomb challenge stage, I talked about it during the K-Star video today, but the Chain Bomb challenge stage, fascinating challenge stage, like actually puts you in a position where it's easy to use what makes Chain Bomb what it is, but your time is slower if you do it like that. Fascinating. And that's just Forgotten Land. Like, actually, I'm just talking about Chain Bomb. Regular Bomb is fun, too. I mean, if we look at the games, again, I'm counting elements for this, so obviously I gotta talk about Bluster Bomb. Even Sizzle Bomb is stupid good. What is it? Freeze Bomb, the ice element, like Freezer Bomb or whatever. That's a projectile that insta-kills enemies, which is something that only the ice element can do. So obviously, that's already really good there. Spark is not a good element. I love it. So having, like, a bomb toss that when it explodes has, like, insane vertical range to it. Really fun. I guess I don't think too much about the water bomb. That one's just kind of whatever, but the water element is by far my least favorite anyway. So whatever. Return to Dreamland. What a turn your brain off ability. It's not, like, absurdly strong like Sand. So eventually you gotta at least, like, move away. But Bomb Bowling in Return to Dreamland is hilariously broken. It is so funny for bosses. And even for regular enemies, you get to a point in Return to Dreamland where enemies actually start packing some pretty decent HP. And then you just start bomb bowling and it's like, they just die. Like, it's not the boss killer that makes every opponent in Return to Dreamland quake in their feet, but it's so much fun to use, and it's so easy. And then if we're talking about bomb, it's got the bomb plant, which in Return to Dreamland makes Kirby go, like, really far up. You can legitimately, in the challenge stage, when you're going over the bottomless pit, and you have the platform, like, pushing you forward really slowly. It's legitimately faster to do, like, a bomb plant, puff cancel, bomb plant, puff cancel, bomb plant. It's, like, the coolest thing. I love it. Bomb is such a... Oh, I love Bomb. It's such a cool ability. There's like the Superstar games. I don't know what it is about Superstar Ultra specifically. Superstar is the same way, but obviously I prefer Superstar Ultra, so that's probably why. But just like regular throwing bombs, I guess it's because in like the modern games, you don't angle throw it with an automatic reticle. You aim it and then you throw it. So it's a lot easier in Superstar Ultra to like, and Superstar as well, I guess, but mostly Ultra, to aim a bomb straight up, toss it up, plant a bomb, and then throw a bomb. And I know bosses have invul in these games, so it's not even like it's gonna do that much, but it makes you feel so big brain. Bomb plant in general in KSSU I just think is really fun. Bomb toss. It's not bomb bowling, it's bomb toss. Like the dash attack, really strong for some reason. It's just super fun. I feel like out of all of the projectile focused abilities that Kirby's ever had, this is one. It's so aggressive. You feel like you're playing a rushdown character from the complete opposite end of the screen. Speaking of KF2, Kirby Fighters 2, that's pretty much what Bomb is. It is a zoner with some of the most insane pressure in the game, at least from that far away. I mean, Bomb's not amazing. Obviously, Bomb has problems. Your game plan is to zone like the most aggressive zoner that you could ever think about. If you know Pokemon terms, imagine like offensive stall, like that. That's not even talking about like Kirby 64. There's so many fun bomb combinations. I love the fireworks. Snowman is useless, but he's very silly, and I love him. Double bomb with the rockets. I need to actually bring him into HRD3, or not HRD3, that's Return to Dream. The robot. HRD2 or whatever. The robot. What's the Shiver Star bots. I need to start bringing double bomb into that fight because it makes that fight so easy. Base bomb against Acro! Solo bomb against Acro! That's actually even more turn your brain off than Sand, but it's 10 million times funnier because it's a water boss. And also, like, every other ability combination in that game just sucks for Acro. It's just Bomb, and it's so funny. I love Bomb. It is the only ability in the entire series where there's no exception. Every single game it's in, I'm just completely enamored with. I didn't even talk about the game that it's best in. You think Bomb is broken in Star Allies? You never played Battle Royale. Bomb in Battle Royale is, like, actually unfair, and I love it. Triple Deluxe Bomb? I didn't even talk about Triple Deluxe Bomb. That ability is really fun, too. It's really good in Triple Deluxe as well. ESP, okay. I hate to say this. I really hate to say this. I'm not big on ESP. I mean, I don't dislike it, but it's, like, here. It's just, it doesn't have that many moves. Like, they're cool moves, but I mean, I also hate to say that, you know, I'm not the biggest on Earthbound. A lot of people tell me that I would love Mother 3, but I've never played it, so I can't comment. But as someone who's, like, not that big on Earthbound, ESP for me, it's like, it's cute, not, of course. Unfortunately, there is a bit of tragedy to ESP that I was around for this. If you weren't around for this doesn't apply to you, but I was around for this. So it makes me very sad. But in Kirby Star Allies, there was this very strange bug. You had to be on, if you were a regular Kirby, this didn't work. You had to be on the ESP helper. So you had to piggyback, which is fine. And if you got into one of those forced combat gauntlets where the game just throws not near infinite spawning, but it could feel like just infinitely spawning enemies that you just take out in one hit. They're really slow. But if you had ESP and you did its teleport, Kirby and the helper would not be on the screen anywhere. And I'm not just talking about how it looks. As far as the game recognized it, you two were gone. So what you could do was teleport past the trigger point for where the enemies would spawn. And if you did that, you could just skip the enemy encounters. Now, obviously, it's not always optimal because you have to have ESP around for it. That's not always possible. There were a few skips that you would do in the any % one that were really, really helpful. And they patched it out, and you can't do it anymore, and it just leaves me looking at ESP kind of longingly. Like, I want to go back to a long, impossible to go back to forgotten time in the past. It makes me yearn for the simpler times of no boring forced combat in Kirby Star Allies. And I don't care what you say, that's a speedrun trick. That was casually challenge run, whatever. Those forced enemy gauntlets, I don't like those. So I'm gonna, no matter what, I'm using that ESP trick. It technically made like ESP one of my most used abilities. Not that I actually like used it, but I always had it because I never wanted to do those. And now it's gone, and it's just like, oh. Looking back fondly on an era gone by while sipping on a warm cup of hot chocolate. No, this is like crying in the club. I do like it against bosses, though. I mean, it's very simple just because you only have that one attack. But I do really like it against bosses. It's particularly interesting when you factor in its counter. Unlike Staff, which you don't get hurt when you use ESPs, you do take damage. So you actually kind of have to balance when you use your counter to try to get quick kills, because it's very strong. But you really need to factor in when you're going to use it, just due to the nature of limited healing. I like ESP. I like ESP. Sorry to get your hopes up, though. Not another fave ranking low. You can't keep doing this to me. Hint, hint, chat. When I ask for the next ability for Wolfgang's sanity, pick poison. Okay. All right. If you gotta go to bed soon and you want to see Hammer, we'll do this request. Okay. So Hammer, I will say I do have Hammer in the top. It is going to be a lot shorter. Hammer is like, I like it a lot. Obviously, it's a top tier ability for me. I like Hammer a lot, but it's not like this gush fest like it would be for Bomb and Cutter and whatever. For a Hammer, it is just, I speedrun, and it is so consistently good against bosses. Even in the games where it's not the single best. Turn to Dreamland, I think it's technically Hammer, but the fastest recorded time is Ninja. Planet Robobot, Ice is better. Star Allies, Luster Bomb is better. Forgotten Land, Crash is better. But Hammer's like always absurdly good. You always have a nice, safe, easy, stupid easy time beating bosses. You got stuff like the Milky Way Wishes strats against Computer Virus. That stuff's always good. I mean, for levels, it's fun. I like using it in the levels. It's got a dash attack, so, you know, good enough for mobility. In the Superstar games, I like using the hammer off of a ledge and doing that into hammer spin. You can do that in the modern games. I just find it a lot more fun in Ultra. I guess, like, it has HSJ going against it now. The last time I did a copy ability tier list, I said this exact same thing. And hammer in the exact same spot for the exact same reason, but that was pre-HSJ. But, like, who cares? Hammer is my all-time favorite ability. It turns bosses into jelly. Feels good, and I adore HSJ. I mean, HSJ for, like, casually messing around with the game and stuff, or doing Lich to Meta Knight Cup, like, that stuff is fun. It's just when you get to any percent, then I'm like, why do we gotta do the Battle Blizzard Bridge skip? I hate this. So Circus is gonna go right below. What? It's not above Bomb. What? But Circus is gonna go right below. Drum roll, please. Da, 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 da. Right under drill. Right there. I love Circus. I think this ability is so silly and so goofy. I think it's super unorthodox in a really charming way. It is, believe it or not, very good at beating bosses for different reasons in Triple Deluxe and Robobot, but all you really need to know is that it's very strong for beating the bosses. It's good. I don't really like its dash attack. That kind of holds it back for me. But the rest of its move kit, I love the balloon charge. I love the trampoline because that's the main boss killer. That's the main, like, really stupid one. I really like Circus's aesthetic. I'm not crazy on clowns, but, like, the hat I just think is really cute. The juggling the pins, that attack is really good. That one's really fun. It doesn't really have much utility in terms of speedrunning proper outside of being very good in boss fights. It's never, like, #1 for boss fights, so you're never going to want to go for it over something that's better. But it's still good. Like, it doesn't have to be #1 in order to be fun, right? And I don't know, I just think it's really goofy. I really like that there's this silly Circus thing that has the community so torn on whether or not it's good or bad. I really like Circus. Again, I wish it would appear in more games, but considering we got it in 2, I'm really happy with what we got. Circus in a new Kirby Clash game where it... Okay, actually, I was just like, oh, no way they'd put Circus in Kirby Clash. Like, are you for real? Now I'm like, I'm pissed that they haven't done that. That sounds so cool. I want Circus Bard. Why do we not have Circus Bard in Kirby Clash? All right, so I'm gonna be perfectly honest. This list I had finished yesterday. We put Archer right here. This is where we had Archer. I spent, because the video was rendered yesterday, right? The K-Star video. So the bulk of my day was reviewing this list. I double checked this morning before the K-Star video came out, and I'm like, is everything still good? Mostly everything was fine. I was okay with just about everything with one exception, and it was this. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, this is good, but we've got a problem here. So yeah, Archer, let's talk about Archer. I think there's, despite how it's easy against bosses because of the invincibility, you can be full screen, the charge time doesn't take a while for the fully charged shot, you can do it really fast, it's very accessible for speedrunning, which I love. I don't think it's completely brainless, because think about something like Sand, its strongest options, you want to be like up close, so if they run away, it's just a matter of getting back to them. When you're up close, you're in a good spot. With Archer, if you're close to the boss, you're in a pretty rough spot. Your only good options to get out are jumping and doing the invincible dash attack. The jump is good, but depending on how mobile the boss is, for example, right? You might, for both Triple Deluxe and Robobot, you probably got better you should have better options than jumping. That's the point of being a copy ability, right? That dash attack is good, completely invincible, pretty weak, very slow. So you don't really want that. There is definitely an art to using Archer really, really well. And if you do want to just turn your brain off and do the crouch and never get hit, that's totally fine. You're not going to do it fast, but you're going to do it. You know, I think by all means. Again, introduction. I think Archer is really fun for the levels. My favorite attack in Archer's kit is actually the jumping dash attack, where you jump, you bounce up a little bit, and you fire 3 arrows diagonally onto the ground. I wish it was better for bosses, but for enemies, so satisfying. Really fun to use in levels. Keeps you moving while you're using it too. One thing I like about Archer is that despite the fact that you're totally content just standing in one spot firing off charged arrows that deal a lot of damage, it is also equally viable for running around and doing stuff. It's not an ability that makes you sit in one spot. I really like that about it. And then, of course, we get to the Kirby Fighters games, where Archer is surprisingly solid in them. I remember for a while, we kind of thought that Archer was just okay, never really terrible, but just kind of okay. And then more and more people started playing it where we realized, oh, no, Archer's just not, ironically, it's just that it's not easy. There's actually a lot of really solid traits that Archer has that not a lot of other abilities do. So Archer in the Kirby Fighters games, also very fun. There's one missing factor here. And I've said this in the past, kind of casually, but I'm ready to commit to this now for real. There's one thing that Archer has that I think makes it better than Hammer and makes it decidedly deserve its spot in the top tier. I don't know if any of you are going to guess what it is. I'm building this up. Maybe people are guessing right now. What finalized this for me, I think Archer has the single best hat out of all the copy abilities. Maybe not by far, but I do think if I had to either say, Klaire Fluffle, what's your favorite hat? Is it Animal? I'd say, no, it's Archer. No, that kicked Metal out of the top 10. How could we do this? When I say, I'm sorry, I meant to Poison. We're doing Poison next. All right, I do this every single time. Hear me out, chat. Hear me out. Look at that. Look at these numbers, chat. 98,000 views, chat. And I know water is right there. You'd assume water has something to do with it too. You read those comments, everybody's talking about Poison. This has 98,000 views because of Poison. This, I can't give an unbiased look on Poison because of this. That being said, if you know anything about Poison, you know it's awesome. You know the fact that I'm ranking it here is deserved. Poison is such a cool ability. Now, granted, before I start talking, I want to make 1 point, well, 2 points perfectly clear. 1, I am aware it's only in Planet Robobot and nothing else. It's still there. And 2, I think moving around the levels with it is really fun. It's got a dash. It's not like water where it kind of makes you go slow for a little while before giving you that burst of speed. Like, you actually just get a regular dash. Your dash attack is cool. There's things like the, that attack you can do in the air where you throw little poison balls onto the ground that can give you a really good mid-air boost if you want to quickly move through, like, a large section where you'd have to fall through the ground to do it. It's similar to Water's up B Geyser, But this one you can angle, and it looks all like squash and stretchy when Kirby tilts. I think that's super cool. So there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do both casually and just kind of like trying to speed through levels. And some fun puzzles that you can solve with it too. I'm not even talking about the Robobot armor. I'm talking about like the poison breath. Boss fights with poison are some of the most fun I have ever had playing Kirby, period. Casually, I mean, even like casually doing boss fights with poison or arena runs, whatever. It's some of the most fun I had with this franchise. It has so many different attacks. And these attacks just so happen to all have a purpose. Every single attack that poison has does something. And if I had to describe the way that poison works for boss fights, we're gonna use a fighting game term here. Poison is a trap setter. For those of you who don't know what a trap setter is, or you don't know fighting game terms, it's basically a character that it has an attack that plants something on the field, and it either interacts with what your opponent is trying to do, or if your opponent interacts with it, then it does something to them that either does damage, nerfs their stats, stuns them, whatever. It has like a Final Cutter style thing where if you get up close, it'll do 2 slashes, it'll jump up and slam back down, and when you slam down, it like spreads a bunch of poison anywhere. It's Planet Robobot that this game is in, so bosses have no invulnerability period, so you can do the poison breath and just let it linger in front of them as you wail on even further damage. The dash attack is actually pretty good for damage. It's not perfect, but it's actually pretty good for damage. The little poison ball that I was talking about before, that one's also really good, especially if you're left in a position where you're above the enemy. The geyser attack, I don't actually think is quite so good against bosses, but like, I don't know, maybe the like the Krako or the Sphere Doomer in the not Pix boss fight. Maybe it's good for those. I don't know. It's the probably, I wouldn't recommend beginning True Arena runs with it. I wouldn't even recommend like looking up a True Arena run for poison. Maybe like Clanky Woods, just so you can get a basic idea of like inspiration. But otherwise, I would just say like play Robobot. It's one of the best games ever. But boot up Robobot, go to the arena, not even the True Arena. Start easy. Go to the arena, pick poison, and just like do things. It would probably be better if it wasn't a trap setter. If it just had like really strong hits like Doctor or something, it would probably be better, but it would be way less distinct, way less fun, and I wouldn't be gushing about it like I am right now. And don't get me wrong, another reason why it's up here is because 98,000 views. I'm not gonna pretend that's not the case, but in boss fights, it's like unparalleled. It is absolutely one of my favorite abilities to go through the True Arena with. That's the video that I found your channel from. I'm not surprised. Out of every, it's so big. It's such a big video. I'm not surprised. So Needle, really funny thing about Needle is that I didn't actually care about Needle all that much for a long time, which I feel like, unfortunately, kind of mirrors what the fan base does. It's just kind of easy to forget about Needle, unfortunately. Like, it doesn't have the flashiest moveset. It hasn't been in the most amount of games. It's typically pretty outclassed. I don't know what happened. I just fell in love with it. It was that spotlight. That's exactly what happened. I literally said that. And it is actually insanely good in one game. I would put up the genuine argument that Needle is the best ability in Air Ride. The only competition it really has is Sword, right? I guess maybe Wheel, but not really. The only competition that it really has is Sword. But I would argue that Needle is definitely better because, I mean, the thing about Sword, it's a great close combat ability. And it's automatic, so you don't have to attack with it. But because of that, the automatic nature of it can make it unreliable. Needle is also automatic. It's just much closer range than Sword is, so it's a little trickier. But if you just tap the A button, you get lots of really good results with it. Of course, I need to talk about the day-to-day quick kill that you can do with Needle plus Shadow Star. I have recorded footage of doing it in 10-15 seconds, and I think the world record is 7 seconds. Something crazy fast. Needle just destroys day-to-day in that mode. The problem with Needle is just that it is outclassed, but that doesn't mean that it isn't good. Nightmare in Dreamland, for example, can do all the stuff that an ability like Spark does. Spark just does it a little better. Turn to Dreamland, it's got a really good dash attack. And if you dash attack off a ledge and then do the regular Needle, you'll actually carry your momentum off of the ledge. You get some really cool stuff that way. But you can have an ability like Wing that can do that in the air. The only problem with Needle is that it can't do it in the air. If Needle had an air dash attack, it would be a lot better, I guarantee you. You got stuff like Triple Deluxe where, all right, sure, they got rid of the dash attack because they're cowards, but Needle has that downward stabby move now that really does good against bosses. Needle went from bottom 4 I think, in Return to Dreamland to genuinely, like, upper mid for boss fights because of that. And granted, Triple Deluxe isn't as crazy. If Needle is in Robobot, it'd probably go back down because Needle's, her abilities are a lot crazier. Despite the fact that it always has tools and it always hangs in there and it always does something, it feels like it can never catch a break. The base kit of Needle is legitimately actually pretty solid once you give it a dash attack and a decent boss killing tool. But that's all it can ever get. It only ever gets the bare basics, but it just does its best. And then it came out in Forgotten Land, and it's this super cool Katamari move where if you roll into enemies, you get speed boosts. And they acknowledge that for the treasure roads, but even when running through the levels normally, it's super fun. I know Syl was talking about ability solo KFL with Needle earlier, and that is absolutely, I think anyway, the best ability solo for Forgotten Land. You got stuff like, can't forget KDL2, Rick plus Needle is actually the single strongest ability combination in the game. I don't think it's the case for KDL3. I think it kind of got power crept by, like, Choo-Choo cleaning, Kubus cleaning, pretty much power crept it. I would still argue there's a lot of good stuff that Needle can do, but I would still argue Air-Ride is the only one who's truly exceptional in terms of speedrun viability, but in terms of underdog status, I don't know how many people are going to agree with me on this one. I have a feeling we're either going to get a lot of Needle is just okay, or a lot of people agreeing with this. And then when I post the tier list on social media, I'll be getting a lot of it's just okay. I also really like Kind plus Needle in Dreamland 3. I think it's very silly. These aren't going to be, they're not actually going to be bottom tier abilities. I'm just going to put them there to make it easier. High jump I have below. Bubble! I love high jump. So it's not in a lot of games. You wouldn't think it would be quite so notable. It's really good in Adventure as well. There's another situation where it's really good in Adventure, but in Nightmare is really when it got kind of OP. And the big difference in Nightmare is that it does like way more damage against bosses, so it's much more viable to hold on to for a longer time. In Adventure, you kind of want it to go just fast when you're moving up, which is kind of just butter building. That's the only time you ever really need high jump, aside from Krakow. Which is fine, you know, nothing wrong with that. You know, when you used it, you could tell that high jump had potential for bosses. It was just a little too weird. And then high jump, they added this huge hitbox to it and dust clouds that also dealt damage, and they also let you cancel it like as soon as you jumped. Adventure lets you cancel high jump, but you gotta wait a little while to do it, a little while longer anyway. Plus it doesn't have the range, all that stuff. But then you get to Nightmare and it's just this really stupid boss killer that's also very good for zooming up level. Still, everything good that Adventure high jump had for going vertically, Nightmare high jump still has. So Nightmare high jump just winds up being this insanely overpowered, stupidly strong ability. Whereas Return to Dreamland, it is unfortunately not very good against bosses. Return Deluxe kind of winds up being the same way. There's not too many differences here. But as far as zooming through the levels, there's a lot that it can offer. Mostly vertically. It has a down shot now, which I guess is decent for when you have to use it against mini bosses, but it's not the most reliable thing for actually clearing them, especially in like a hundo run or something like that. It could do to be a lot better. But that's really just for bosses. As far as movement goes, which is what high jump was made for, I have a lot of fun with it. I love the hat. I love the cape. I always thought Kirby looked like a superhero when I was a kid. I love that because Kirby is so heroic, right? And then I grew up and everyone's talking about how evil Kirby is. And I'm like, okay, actually, no. So I have Missile in the mid-soul. Ha 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 ha. So my big thing about putting it here is that Candace Curse is the NCA game. For some reason, Missile in this game is annoyingly slow. It is not good. I do not like it in Canvas Curse, but in Amazing Mirror, it is brutally difficult to get the hang of, but also super rewarding and fun. I only really have the missile movement down for Candy Constellation, and I think there's a little bit that you have to use it in all sprays as well. I have that mostly down pat, but missile is really fun in Amazing Mirror. Definitely hard to get the hang of because I said this during K-Start, but when you do a direction to guide a missile, it doesn't go in that direction. It guides it, so it's got to move over first. The way that people tend to get around it is to just do the opposite direction first and then immediately do the other one. Press down to make it go down and then up. We'll just kind of like trick it into thinking like, oh, it's just the opposite direction. Like we can just go up right away. It's really hard to get the hang of, but it's really satisfying. But that's one game. The other game it's in, which is Canvas Curse, blows. All right, and Spear, we're gonna put right here. I've always loved Spear. Spear is one of my favorites. I just love, we're not going to talk about Bandana D, but I've always loved that Spear always just felt so creative to me. You got thrusts with it. You got the spear tosses, like you're throwing a javelin in Fire Emblem or something. I love the Spear Copter. It's not Bandana Copter, I'm aware, but the Spear Copter is still very silly. I've always liked that you could attack out of it to cancel it, or you could jump cancel it. Charge time was never really that long, even pre-Star Allies. Well, I guess Spear isn't in a pre-Star Allies game, but you know what I mean. Kind of shame that it doesn't have Bandana D's ground thrust for the purposes of this list. Probably would have put it above Poison if it did. As far as bosses go, I really love the Return to Dreamland strats, which I guess are the Triple Deluxe strats too, but it's terrible for bosses in Triple. By far, it's the worst ability in Triple Deluxe for those boss fights, so I don't like to think about that. I still think it's fun to use in Triple Deluxe, but in like Return to Dreamland, you throw a spear and then you wait a second and you throw it again because you gotta factor in the invul times. It's kind of strategic in a way, and I just think it's really fun kind of working on your positioning since you gotta jump and you gotta dash to do it, obviously, or else you're gonna do the normal spear thrust. I really like Spear as well in Kirby Battle Royale, of course. It's the spear toss in Battle Royale is actually insane. The fact that it's just something that's that fast, it's a set distance. If it hits somebody, it just kind of launches them away. I don't know why Spear is like that in Battle Royale, but I really like it. The point is, with what I'm saying, is that I really like it. It's not in that many games, and it's kind of like Needle in how it doesn't leave too much of an impression most of the time. But I just think, I guess compared to Needle, it just has a bit more utility. Like, it can reach through walls a little bit better. It can reach further away. It has a vertical protection if you're playing more casually. I guess it doesn't have a dash attack, or a dash attack that's good for movement, which is unfortunate, but it does have a dash attack that's good for bosses. And personally, I look for bosses more than I look for levels. That's just me, though. But Spear, super fun, super like it. Well, the Spear Copter would not be good for Bandana D. The Bandana Copter, that would be great for Bandana D. We'll actually start with Ranger, since it's not the one that I have the most to say, but I think it's the hardest. Lower mid, I spoiled it, but it's up highest. I've talked about this in the past. I am not a fan of Ranger. I don't know, I really didn't like Ranger 2. Ranger 1, it just feels like, to me, it's if you don't charge it, it's really weak. And if you do charge it, you're a sitting duck and it's really slow. I think Kirby with a gun is really funny. I'll give it that. And I will also give it that I really like Ranger 3. I just think Ranger 3 has a really cool aesthetic. You get a lot more options, like, immediately. Like, the little laser that you get if you don't charge it up, or even just a little bit, I feel like is a lot better. I don't like that Ranger 2 was all just a bunch of really weak shots. A Noble Ranger, I think it is. I don't like that one. And Ranger 1, I think, is, like, fine. But Ranger 3, definitely Space Ranger. It definitely ups it on the list for me. That's some good stuff. Smash next. I don't like Smash, the ability, that much for a pretty decent amount of time. Upon reflection, I found Smash to... Oh, there it is, right. I like Smash. I actually put it, I think, right above... I said right above Beam, right? Yo, maybe not right above Beam. No, right above Beam, yeah. It's Amazing Mirror, and it's got a lot of move options. It's also Dream Collection, which I thought the Dream Collection challenge stage for this was really, really good. I liked it a lot. A really nice nod to the Smash series that kind of made, or gave Kirby the opportunity, rather, to be as big as the franchise got to be. Smash is super fun. I wish it was in more games, but I really love what they did with it in the Dream Collection, especially the EX challenge stage that it got. That is so much fun. That one is so much fun. Then lastly, we'll just go over Cupid real quick. Really funny that this is what we wound up doing, because Cupid I put right above Smash. I actually would think about putting Cupid a little bit higher if it weren't for Squeak Squad. I really don't like it in Squeak Squad. But in Amazing Mirror, I think it's really just so much fun to play around with. The flight that you get with Cupid is so fast. It's so free. It just feels like so freeing to use. Because normally, if you want fast mobility in the air, you can get it horizontally okay with, like, flow canceling and stuff. Or momentum canceling, rather. But it never feels like you have control over it while it's still really, really fast. Obviously, you learn how to use Parasol, you get control over it, everything's fine. Cupid really had it. Cupid really, an Amazing Mirror. It felt fast, it felt satisfying. You do a lot of really cool, neat tricks with it. Offensively, it's not that great, it's pretty weak. But it just means you get to fly around and do fun stuff with it more. Speedrun viable? No. But fun? Yeah, I'd say so, It is a bummer that Archer stole all of its thunder, admittedly. But I think there's a universe that they can coexist. If Cupid just focuses more on the Cupid aspect of it, and Archer focuses more on the sniper aspect of it, then I think these two can coexist. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I really like Cupid. That's just me, though. You gotta ask Puppy. Ice is... I've talked about this a few times. Ice is a top 3 ability for me. It's pretty solidly in 3rd, but it is also... I guess I spoiled nothing, so when it gets above Bomb, except for you-know-what. Ice is pretty solidly a top 3 ability for me, has been for a long time. I want to say it was actually when Return to Dreamland came out, the original in 2011. When I played through that game, Ice just won me over almost immediately. I've always liked some of the attributes of Ice. I've always liked the cold aspect of it. I'm somebody who genuinely enjoys being in the cold rather than the warm. I've always enjoyed the aesthetic of it. I just love snow or ice world aesthetics. I think they look very nice, especially in the dark. And Kirby games are generally pretty bright, but they can get dark too. And in those kind of areas, I especially really love to have ice. Not that it has any gameplay perks, although if we are talking about gameplay perks, in starting with Return to Dreamland, maybe even Squeak Squad, depending on how you want to look at it, I do think it's really cool that ice can melt fire, so it has some more utility to it as well. It's always had utility with freezing enemies, freezing blocks. Well, I guess you can't really freeze blocks, but freezing enemies, using those ice blocks to attack bosses and other enemies in front of you. Really fun. I don't know if I would say it ever really had a purpose in more optimized stuff. I know in the Superstar games, its initial dash is a lot faster. In the original Superstar, you can just repeatedly initiate your dash, and that'll make you go a lot faster. It's really easy and really fun. Superstar Ultra, you kind of have to hard mode it, but you can shield to cancel your initial dash, and because of the way that ice works, it still winds up going a lot faster because of that. I think it looks a lot cooler, and it's more satisfying to pull off. Maybe this is because my DS doesn't have a working R button, but I find it really hard. I has a working L button, but trying to dash with my thumb and using my pointer finger to press the L button just doesn't really feel right compared to using my left thumb to dash and using my right pointer finger to guard. Obviously, I don't think anybody would be surprised to learn that Return to Dreamland giving it a dash attack really did wonders for what I thought about this ability. And it's a good dash attack, too. When Kirby turns to that ice ball and goes zoomies right ahead on the screen, it's really good. It's really fun to play around with. Planet Robobot made it absolutely broken. It's really fun in Forgotten Land, too. I know a lot of people really don't like it in Forgotten Land. I didn't like it at first either. It was definitely one that I had to practice and learn what it was all about, and then the boss quick kill discoveries got discovered. I meant to say strategies, but I said discoveries. Oopsie doopsie. I wouldn't say it's quite as creative as Drill is in terms of boss killing, but if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I actually think I like using it more. I like using Drill more for the regular levels, but I like using Ice more for bosses. I don't know if it's my favorite. I mean, Chain Bomb is obviously my favorite for bosses, but as far as not upgradable abilities go, like Ice 1, that's definitely my favorite for bosses. And then, of course, obviously, there's things like the fact that he's got the Mr. Frosty hat is so cute. It's so cute. Really, if we're talking about some problems that I have with Ice, I do think in a lot of the earlier games, it can be very weak. It's fun in a lot of them. I really like using it in Adventure, for example, but if you were to ask me, you know, pull up a list of the worst abilities that aren't something like Crash or Mike or Sleep or Light. Genuinely pulling up the worst abilities, I'd probably say Ice. Although, that's where Freeze comes in handy, because Freeze actually does have some, at the very least, it has utility. I'm not sure if I would call Freeze all that great, especially in Nightmare where Spark is super duper good. But it does have some utility. I love the hat. Then there's games like Canvas Curse where it's not Ice, it's Freeze, but it's still really good. So there's all that. I don't know. Just at the end of the day, there's so much about Ice that I love. Similar to Bomb, it just fires off on all cylinders. I don't think I like it in as many games as I do with Bomb. And whereas Bomb has a game like Forgotten Land, where it's just my favorite ability in the game, I don't think Ice has anything like that either. So that's why that's what I meant when I said it was a distant third. I didn't mean to speak down on it. I just more meant that Bomb is really fun. Skating over water, lava, and other stuff is really cool in Forgotten Land. That's another thing I forgot to mention, but you're right. Sleep is such a hard one to talk about, right? The problem with Sleep is that it's so hard not to talk about it. If you are in on the joke with Sleep and you just get it, you know it's going to be somewhere up here. If you don't get the joke and you don't like how people hype up this meme that you don't understand, it's somewhere like down here. It really does nothing. And I will admit, before Battle Royale came out, I was probably a little closer to here. You know, the kind of ability where I'd say I see no value in it, but it's funny. But because that's all it is, I probably can't put it above such a high value ability like Sand, right? Then, I mean, Squeak Squad came out and it restored your health, but there are so many more reliable ways to restore your health. I would use Bubble to mix stuff together in order to get more health long before I would use Sleep. And Sleep, you need the scroll for. Bubble, you don't. Then it came out in Forgotten Land and Battle Royale. Battle Royale more pertinently. Forgotten Land with the Deep Sleep probably already netted a slot, like, right here. But even ignoring Forgotten Land, which, how dare you, Deep Sleep is incredible, but even ignoring that, Sleep in Battle Royale definitely gave it the push to go right there. I love this ability. Again, ignoring Battle Royale and Forgotten Land, I still think it's a really funny joke. I'm glad they tried to give it something in Squeak Squad. And then, I believe, starting with Return to Dreamland, I don't think there were any other games that let you do this prior, but starting with Return to Dreamland, they let you wake up sooner if you shook the Wii Remote, and then in the other games, it was just shaking the circle pad or the D-pad, whatever you want to call it. Oh, another thing Return to Dreamland gave it that I loved, actually, and something that I've wanted to try using a modified version of the game to challenge myself, and the sleep bubble, the snot bubble, when it pops, that does damage. So feasibly, technically, in theory, you could beat bosses with it if you had an infinite supply of it, which is really funny to me. And I believe this holds true in the other games, such as Star Allies and Planet Robobot and Triple Deluxe. I believe it holds the same for those. I know in Forgotten Land, it doesn't quite do that, but it's a stat booster. When you have regular sleep, it just restores your health, and then when you get deep sleep, it restores even more health. And if you sleep for long enough, when you wake up, you can get one of a free attack boost, a free defense boost, which is HP, or a free speed boost, which I think is really funny. You know, you fall asleep and you're refreshed. Teaching those kids that go into bed is a good thing. Shoutouts to go to bed percent speedrun. But if we're talking about sleep, we're talking about Battle Royale, where it's absolutely one of the very few games. This does not happen a lot, but it is one of the very few games where I can genuinely say I like it more than Parasol. Obviously, when I'm playing Battle Royale with people, I'm going to be using Parasol, one for my image, and one because meaning Parasol is my thing. I would much rather, even though I like it less, so I'd much rather stick to my character loyalty than use an ability that technically I like a little bit more. But Battle Royale Sleep is, I might say, the single most inventive a copy ability has ever gotten. You take the concept of sleep and put it into a party fighter, we'll say. I won't say platform fighter, but a party fighter, we'll say that. Something like Power Stone, which is, I love Power Stone. I'm not trying to insult the genre. But they give sleep so much that it can do. Kirby carries around a pillow now, which you can use to smack enemies. And if you give him the old 1-2, which I guess is a 1-2-3 in this case, but if you give him the old 1-2, then Kirby goes to sleep and dreams about cake, like in Squeak Squad. And that restores HP. That's another game where Kirby can restore HP using sleep. It's not very useful, but it's really funny. You have that stupid jumping spin attack with the pillow that knocks you down when you use it. It's so strong. That last day that we were doing Battle Royale online battles together, that kept getting me. I kept getting hit by the spin attack. And it kept knocking me down. I'm like, Kirby, get up! Speaking of Kirby Get Up, Sleep has a command grab in Battle Royale, which is the funniest thing in the world to me. You put the sleep hat on them, which is also the original green sleep hat, not the purple one. So they gave a nod to the old sleep hat as well. And what this does is that it forces the enemy to go to sleep for a few seconds. That means you can set up anything. If it's a team battle, your partner can just hit them with a really easy dash attack. Or if it's apple scramble, you can just get a bunch of apples, or you can throw them into the spikes to score an easy KO. You can score them into the cannons to launch them into your section of where the apples are, and then your partner can dunk them to get an instant KO. You got the charge attack, of course, which is the snot bubble. I don't think the snot bubble is actually very good, but it's really funny. It's such an interesting and fun ability. Another reason why I love Battle Royale so much. I love what they did with Mirror in Battle Royale. I thought they did a great job, but you could kind of tell they wanted to put sleep in there, and I'm so happy that they did. They absolutely made one of my favorite abilities in the series. And it's not like this changes anything about sleep in the other games. I do think going forward, having sleep take inspiration from a game like Forgotten Land or Battle Royale, or even both, would be better than kind of keeping it as just like a complete joke. But I still look at the complete joke that it is in the other games, and I laugh. Because the thing about jokes is that if they're funny, if they're truly funny, you can hear them an infinite amount of times, and the joke will never get old. And that's sleep for me. I don't think the joke is ever going to get old. I would have made it in Battle Royale if you could use it in the story mode. Yeah, I think the worst thing about Battle Royale is that it doesn't let you use the DLC abilities. Normally, I don't like being able to use DLC in a regular story mode. I feel like it throws the balance off. But Battle Royale would have been the exception, because Mirror and Sleep are so much fun in that game. So Yo-Yo first. Okay. Remember the last time I made a Kirby Copy Ability tier list? I didn't place this one particularly high. I think I put it somewhere around here. And I'm not entirely sure what has changed, because some of the issues that I have with it, I still have. Say I really like Yo-Yo and ruin the thing that I just set up. Great. So the dash attack, my problem with the dash attack is that if you use it on the ground, there's a ton of end lag on it that makes it feel really bad. But like most abilities, if you jump and do the dash attack, and this is applicable to all of Superstar, Superstar Ultra, and Star Allies, all three. If you do that, it's a lot faster, a lot more invincible feeling, quote unquote, and a lot more fun. I like it a lot. It just feels more natural. Star Allies, of course, gave it a move called Walking the Dog, maybe becoming a VTuber. Had a lot to do with it. When I made that previous tier list, I wasn't a VTuber yet. So maybe being a VTuber now and having a move where I get to walk the dog, maybe that helped. Maybe that helped. I will admit, I have always loved that down-up attack where Kirby does the spin on the yo-yo, starting from the ground, shoots up, does a bunch of spinnies, and then lands on the ground. I always thought that attack was genuinely super cool. And there's just something really fun about using a combat-focused ability, but you get to use it from really far away. I really like it. I mean, it's cheap, and I hate fighting against it, especially because Parasol against it doesn't do very well. But yo-yo in a game like Kirby Fighters 2, I think is really, really cool. I was actually considering picking up yo-yo in Fighters 2 for a while. It never really wound up working out, but it's a super fun ability in that game. I really like just the idea of having an ability that's fast, kind of weak, but fast and long to deal with a lot of the nonsense in Kirby Fighters 2. It doesn't deal with everything, but I mean, there's still stuff like the dash attack that's super fun, the down up B, it's got good range, a really good range, obviously, good anti-air, good pokes, good combos. It's just really fun. I think elements also really help it a lot too. This is one of the elements where Bluster is really cool, but Sizzle is my favorite. I also really like the Blizzard, the ice element, because obviously if you use yo-yo from that far away, it's similar to what I was saying about an ability like Bomb or Cutter, except it's not a projectile, it's actually a close range ability. Freeze abilities, they die right away. They don't slowly die so you get the chance to throw the friend heart at them. They just instantly poof, which is a really nice attribute of the Blizzard compared to other elements. It can still feel a little iffy in the Superstar games. I especially feel like in the original, my mind hasn't changed much on it. It's still around somewhere in the mid-tier for me as far as the original goes. But Superstar Ultra, it's gotten a little bit better. Fighters 2 has launched since then, which is really fun. Star Allies, I've learned to appreciate a lot of really fun stuff about it. I did Soul Melter EX with it, which also gave me a new appreciation inherently. I remember routing with Demo years ago, this really fun category that I've been wanting to revisit. It's just a category where, from a fresh save file, you have to get every ability, and that's all it is. It's not an ability draft, it's just get every ability. And for a good chunk of the game, Yo-Yo wound up being the best option to have. He did the routing. And he was saying, oh, finally, I get to show off my yo-yo tech. Like, he had this yo-yo tech, which was literally just do the aerial dash attack, but link it together. Like, jump, dash attack, yo-yo dash, land, jump, yo-yo dash. It's actually surprisingly fast. I actually didn't think I'd have that much to say on yo-yo, but the more I'm talking about it, the more I realize, yeah, no, yo-yo is really cool, and I really like it. I don't like its mobility quite as much as something like Amazing Mirror, Cupid, or High Jump in general, rather, but it's got a lot more to offer than Cupid does, and it wasn't nerfed like it was in Squeak Squad. I guess it has more to offer than High Jump as well, but High Jump has Nightmare, and also High Jump is just really fun. So I guess that's what landed it right there. Cool. Awesome. This might be a hot take. Actually, I'm going to lump these two together, because I don't have too much to say on them, and they're also right next to each other. So Fighter goes here, and Ninja goes here. They're fun. I think my thing with Ninja and Fighter is that I don't think it's quite as strongly, but I get why people like Ninja and Fighter so much. I get why they celebrate these two so much, and Fighter did get a lot better for me in Return to Dreamland, where they added the fact that you could do a quarter circle forward to throw out a Hadouken, but they're just not that fun to me. I guess Return to Dreamland really would be the peak of both of them, just because they're so stupidly strong. Later games, it's not that I like them less because they're weaker, they technically are, but it's not that's why I'm not as enthused with them. I just don't really get into their movesets too much, especially Ninja. Fighter has Return to Dreamland for me that I really, really like it. Ninja, I generally feel the same on in every game that it's in, which is, it's good. I like it. Fighter does have some stinkers for me. I don't like it in the OG Superstar. I don't really like it too much in Triple Deluxe. I'm not entirely sure what it is about TDX that makes me not super keen on it. I haven't done Soul Melter EX with either of these abilities yet, so this could change. I mean, I know Ninja's really strong. I already know what Ninja does, so I don't think Ninja's going to be too much of a big change. And Fighter, I kind of know what it does, but I don't know. It could still be. You never know. You never know, right? I guess I like them all right in Superstar Ultra, but I remember saying this last time. Superstar Ultra is the only game where I pretty much like every ability There's only 1 or 2 exceptions of abilities that I don't think are super duper great in that game. Ninja has that really strong slash attack that it has in Return to Dreamland, so it's really good there too, but it's just not as fun to me. Hammer in Superstar Ultra is just straight up better. I'd much rather use that. And I don't know if Ninja has that Shockwave attack in Superstar, but Superstar has so much more jank. It doesn't get to stick out nearly as much. I wish the Pyrotechniques attack Ninja has was in more games than Squeak Squad. Yeah, I actually forgot about that. I didn't even think about that. It doesn't change its spot, but it is actually something I really like. Ninja in Squeak Squad is actually probably one of my personal favorite ninjas. My favorite is Return to Dreamland, same with Fighter, like no questions asked. But Squeak Squad is up there for Ninja. I really like Squeak Squad Ninja a lot. Probably one of my favorite abilities in that game even. It has that really cool idle animation too, which I think Fighter also has, but I don't like it as much. This is probably, outside of Parasol, this has to be the most obvious top tier out of all of these. The question is where in the top tier, and my answer is right below Sleep. It's Whip. Okay, so I guess in the interest of fairness, if you're not a familiar, it's not like Parasol, where so much of me is me talking about it, where no matter what, it's obvious. Whip, I guess if you're not that active with me, you wouldn't know. But if you've heard me talk about Whip for 5 seconds and say, well, okay, first of all, just to make this point across, can I get a yeehaw? Can I get a yeehaw? Can I get a yeehaw? And that's why it's so obvious, right? Because it's all I ever talk about. It doesn't even have to, someone says the word whip and I'm just like, can I get a yeehaw? Can I get a yeehaw? And it's not just the yeehaw. The yeehaw is why it's obvious, of course, but there's so many other things that I love about Whip. So bizarrely, it's not great for bosses, but it's one of my favorites to use for the boss rushes because it's very good, mind. And when I say this, I mean in the camp of abilities that are genuinely really good for the boss fights, but it isn't as mindless, I guess, even in a game like Return to Dreamland, where you're just doing that diagonal down whip strike in the air. That's pretty much all you really need to do for the boss fights, because for some reason it's really, really strong. I guess command grabs if you can for something like Duder. But the reason why it doesn't feel so mindless, it's more of a rhythm, I guess, but also because it's not that strong. You still need to focus on things like spacing, positioning, timing, stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into repeatedly using this attack. Unlike an ability, I hate to say it, like Bomb, where you're just bomb bowling the whole time. Sometimes you gotta jump. Oh no, what are you gonna do? Oh! I mentioned this earlier, but for the YouTube cut, where we're probably not gonna hear this, it's peak aesthetic. The cowboy hat, the whip, the artwork that you're seeing on screen, that was used for Kirby Fighters 2, where Kirby's pulling the fedora down and going, you know, tip, tip, tip. Except unlike most people, Kirby pulls it off like 10 out of 10. This is amazing. Genuinely speaking, I really love using it for the levels too. I mentioned this a lot earlier. I don't remember what ability, but so long as I'm playing a Kirby game where the movement feels good, I don't need a dash attack. They're very nice to have, but I don't need a mobility-focused dash attack so long as Kirby's base movement is fun and the ability is super duper fun. And I think Whip is super duper fun. I really like grabbing items. I feel like I wish you could do this with energy spheres, but you can do it with food and 1-ups and stuff like that, and star bits, all that stuff. I mostly find myself doing this in Return to Dreamland, but instead of taking an ability like Hammer or Stone or an item crackler to get health or rewards for doing something, so to speak, what I do instead is that I use Whip. I just use Whip to grab the items. I feel like it allows me to keep Whip for a lot longer. Of course, if it's an energy sphere, I'll just grab Daddy-Day, to be frank. Or a Mennonite or Bandana-D, whoever it is. But if it's just something, if I could save the time of not having to micromanage 2 controllers for 5 seconds, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use Whip, which I really like. There's something cool about Whip that I really love. Whip Tornado, nowhere near as efficient as Tornado for movement, but Whip Tornado is really fun. I love how many hits it does. I love the sound effect in really all the games. Obviously, it's a modern game at this point. They don't need, it's not like DS-ified where they're all unique. But something about just the loudness of it in Return to Dreamland. I guess Deluxe as well. I really just, I can't get enough of. Bizarrely, what game is it where the dash attack... Oh, Star Allies, right. That's how we did it in Star Allies. We got it first or second try, I think. In Soul Melter EX, we just did Whip's dash attack over and over. It's really strong. I don't know why it's that powerful. I know a big bulk of why is because it does a bunch of hits that are all really, really strong. And Star Allies is a game where boss info just doesn't exist. But I think my big thing with it being so good is that it has a ton of range on it, too. Whip's dash attack, you'd be surprised. It reaches pretty far, which makes it a really safe move. That's also really strong. That's also really spammable. That's pretty invincible for a decent chunk of it. And it still has its other moves. It still has Up Whip. It still has Diagonal Down Whip. It still has Whip Tornado. It still has the command grabs. It's still fun. I will say for the main campaign of Star Allies, I'm not as thrilled with it. Not because of the fault of Whip at all, just because movement in Star Allies, to me, on Kirby at least, feels a little off. But there are things like Dream Friends and other buddies that can help you get around that. You can be Whip Kirby while piggybacking on anybody for movement. I'll just say Day-to-Day because I like doing the Day-to-Day dive. I think it's really fun. Although I do really like Whip Tornado with fire. I think it shoots out fireballs. That's really fun. That's really fun. What I really like about Whip personally and why I think it ranks so high is because it's really fun and it's really strong and stuff like that. But when I say really strong, I don't mean it in a context that I would say for any other ability that's really good. Because it's not absurd, it's just really strong. I actually feel like when I do good with Whip, I am rewarding myself. It feels very rewarding to use. The down command grab, up, left, and right are pretty self-explanatory. Up whips them up, spams them to the ground. Left and right, just left and right, easy. But the down one slops them on the ground twice before letting them go, and they get sent flying. Super, super satisfying. I love Whip. Thank you, Velo, for the yeehaw. Nobody else yeehawed. What gives? Doctor, I really like Doctor. Unfortunately, it's not quite top. Right above, whoops, there we go. Right above Ball, right here. Another one that's just peak aesthetic. I love Doctor a lot. Planet Robobot, it is absolutely super wonderful. I love it in that game. Just another example of Planet Robobot being unable to miss. It's stupid strong against bosses. I don't quite know what they were thinking there, but I like that. I like when something's so stupidly strong. It's got some solid attacks too, outside of silly boss rush stuff. I like throwing the pills around. Its dash attack is actually pretty good. I feel like, while I wouldn't necessarily say you would be able to see it in any percent, unlike your cutters, you might see it in any percent at some point. I don't know. Maybe the optimization gets that far, because Doctor is better than Cutter. It is, for bosses. But Doctor's dash attack is super fun. I would definitely want to do an ability solo with it someday. If we ever have a way to play Planet Robobot that's able to be recorded, you know, that would be really nice. Really nice. It's just got a lot of really cool moves in its kit. I'll admit, I hear this a surprising amount of times when people are talking about, and of course, if you like this, I'm not going to talk down on you, but when people are talking about the Kirby Clash games, they're like, oh yeah, Dr. Healmore is so good. Really? Dr. Healmore is the bad one. I mean, I know that's the case for the speedrunning, but even the way, at least the way that I play it, I always found Dr. Healmore to always be the bad one. Like, Dr. Healmore can heal you, which is alright, but Beam can freeze time. Hammer can win fights. Like, just straight up, Hammer wins battles. And it's not quite, I definitely don't think Sword is as good as Beam or Hammer in the Kirby Clash games, but it can it's at least really good for IGTs. Not IGTs, I'm stupid. ILs, like individual levels. When you're level 100 and you KO early game enemies in 2 hits, right? Sword's really good for those. I just never really found much of a use for Dr. Healmore. And then Sword also has some utility, like being able to guard so you don't take as much damage. Maybe if there's like a multiplayer category. Well, if there's a multiplayer category, then you just cheese. But if there's single player stuff, then Sword won't be as helpful, but it could do something. I don't know. I could see it. I could see why somebody would use Sword, even casually. I could see why somebody would look at Sword. I don't like it, but I could see why somebody would look at Sword and go, yeah, I'll use this. I'll be a support member. I'll be team support while dealing some decent damage. Like, I can understand that. I still think it's not as good as B-Mage in that regard, but you could do something with it. I don't know about Dr. Healmore. And that definitely holds Doctor back for me, but not that much. Mostly just because, 1, you at least get different hats for it, which is really cool. 2, it's so good in Planet Robobot. And 3, don't think I forgot about Battle Royale, because it's in Battle Royale too, and it's super fun in that game. I'll admit that I don't quite click with it as much as I do with some abilities like Parrot and Sleep, but it's still super fun. I still really like using it. It gets its dash attack for its actual dash, which is a really good dash attack. Its charge attack is so stupid. The one where you get the potion, that one is so strong. That one is really, really good. It's not bombs, but it's really, really good. The Doctor's just so much fun to play around with in all these games. I like Doctor a lot. What can I say? I am a fan of the Doctor, even if I refuse to go to the vet. I do not have a lot to say about Leaf. Leaf is fine. Leaf is fine. It's got a good shield, I guess. You're not mobile during it. And it takes a little while for you to be able to move, but it's immune to damage and it does damage back, so it's got that. Dash attack is slow. I don't really like it. The Leaf uppercut thing is really fun. I like using that. I really like the boss fights where you do the aerial down B where Kirby sprinkles 3 leaves onto the ground. And then so that you like cancel it out so you can do them again sooner. You do a float puff cancel and then you do it again. I think that's really cool. It's got invincibility on its charge attack, I guess. It spins. I like the spinning. It's pretty good for bosses. It's one of those really brainless ones that's really easy, but It's not super dominant like Sand, so I don't wind up liking it as much. I think it's actually a little better than Whip, but I just find myself having so much more fun with Whip. It's good. I mean, I have it in mid. It sounds like it should be in lower mid based on how I'm talking about it, but I really do like the Leaf Uppercut. That move saves it for me. I guess also the Leaf Lounce, as I call it, because this is the ability that donned the name. But what I describe the Leaf Lounce as is in the modern games, more notably Return to Dreamland, Return Deluxe as well, when you use a certain attack in an abilities kit that kind of pushes it up in the air a little bit when it's used. I really like that about the modern games, and the Leaf Lounce, specifically with the down B where Kirby shoots out the 3 leaves, that one's really fun to do with Leaf Louncing. So I guess there's that too. The Leaf Lounce just kind of gives me a bit more of a natural bias to it. It could have been Beam Bounce. Like if I found it with Beam, I could call it the Beam Bounce and it would actually make sense. As for UFO, technically I am mixed on it just because there's a decent amount of games that I don't think it's particularly fun in. But I still rank it highly just because the games where it is super good. It is insanely fun. I actually put it above Yo-Yo. I am mostly thinking of Adventure and Dream Course. Those are the 2 games where UFO, they just didn't care. I mean, Adventure, they cared. They also were programming for the NES. So for those that don't know, this is probably realistically the reason why UFO ranks so high. In Adventure, if you do one of 2 things, either you lose your ability, if you get rid of your ability on the frame that you get hit, or on the frame that you pause the game and exit the stage, either one, this isn't just UFO, this is every ability, but you keep it outside of the level. Most abilities, the game doesn't recognize it, I guess because they don't have a hat, so it gives you this Splash Kirby that can't do anything. But with abilities that have an accessory to them, such as Hammer, Parasol, Sword, you get to keep those. Generally not very good, but it counts UFO as well. So it allows you to take UFO outside of levels, and UFO outside of what was intended is absurdly strong and has the most hilarious weakness, that being ladders. It is so fast. It is such a joy to breeze through the game with. You can do it. I've done it. My record time is 50 minutes, but I think world record is around a half hour, if not a tiny bit over. So you can get through Adventure with just UFO really quickly. Even Tornado, I don't think, has broken the 40-minute barrier, and UFO is close to going into the 20s. I don't know if it'll quite get to the 20s for a while, but UFO is really, really good. And then Dream Course, I talked about it during the K-Star video, but just imagine playing golf, and you can control the speed and direction of which your golf ball goes for 10 seconds. After that, things get a little more dicey. Nightmare in Dreamland, I don't really like using it at all. I feel like they tried to balance it, and they made it way too slow, but you can't take it outside of levels. Thankfully, in Squeak Squad and Amazing Mirror, they allow you to take it out of levels, and I think that makes it a lot more fun. I really like just kind of adventuring around with UFO. It's also a bit better balanced in those games because it's much better as a boss killer. I guess in Nightmare, it's still really good for a boss killer, but I much prefer using Ball. Ball is also a lot better. Hammer would probably be a lot better too. It's probably more just because of how multi-hits work in Nightmare. So like Spark would be better, Sword would be better. It's good, but it could be better is what I'm trying to say. Whereas Adventure, it's just the best boss killer in the game, no questions asked. Then of course we get to Planet Robobot, where you need an amiibo to do it or 100% completion. And unfortunately, where it really shines, which is against bosses, you need an amiibo for. That is outrageous! UFO is just stupid good for the boss rush in Planet Robobot. It's so easy. It's a lot easier than Archer. The only reason I still recommend Archer over UFO is because you need amiibo. UFO, but the F stands for Unidentified Fluffle Object? Yo, that's when the scientists see my puppy ears and tail and they're like, how did you do that? I hate to break it to you artists out there, but we could have gotten, this is the last ability in the low tier. It's the top of low tier. It stands out more than Leaf does. I'll agree on that part. My thing with Artist, it's not that I don't like it. I mean, it's fine if you remove what I'm about to say from it. Like the gameplay for it is like fine enough. Artist, what bothers me, it's the one ability where I look at it and I'm like, I'm disappointed in this. Stress this, we're not talking about Dream Friends. They're separately, but Adeline and Ribbon, much better. Much better. They're super fun. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about Artist Kirby. And Artist Kirby is really boring. Its regular attack in Fighters 2, I enjoy. But that's it. I guess Artist in Fighters 2 is also something that saves it. I mean, it doesn't boot it up a tier. But when I initially did this, I actually had it like below Mini, just based on Star Allies, because it really doesn't have anything to do in that game. And then I played, and then I was thinking about Fighters 2 again, and I'm like, no, this is actually really fun in Fighters 2, so let me move it up a little bit. It's really annoying as a CPU in the story mode, but I still really like it in Fighters 2. Not that much. I would never, like, play it unless I was doing a single-handed mode kind of deal. There's more than I could say for Star Allies. It is PK aesthetic, and that gives a lot of brownie points for me. I just don't care about it. I can't. And every time I do try to bring myself to care about it and I use it, I just leave disappointed. Maybe if Artist was in Battle Royale, I'd rank it higher. If we got to see a Battle Royale moveset for Artist, I'd probably rank it higher. Because Battle Royale sets such cool movesets for everything. Alright, so here we go with Sword. I feel like I could place this anywhere, and just based on how I treat it, there's gonna be problems. Some backstory. Let's paint a picture together. Even though I just ranked Artist super low, let's paint a picture together about this puppy and Sword. So, Sword is an ability that is easily a fan favorite. Everybody loves Sword. Everybody loves the hat. They love the Zelda references. They love charging spin attacks. They love stuff about it. I don't. And because everybody is going gung-ho over Sword, and I don't love it, I decided I'm gonna be Sword's #1 hater, alright? I'm gonna be the one. All those people out there that don't like Sword and just don't want to bring it up because the Kirby community is a fandom that is agreeable until you disagree with them, and then they're absolutely vicious. I said, you know, I'll champion you. I'll champion you guys, alright? And, you know, my videos don't get, like, nearly enough views for me to be that person. But when we get to that point, you know, I'll be that person. This is prep work. We're getting it ready in advance, right? In reality, the way I talk about Sword is not really how I feel about it. It's pretty mixed. Kirby reference. Kirby speedrunning reference. Mixed. I think there are games such as Nightmare in Dreamland, Forgotten Land, Return to Dreamland. I don't know about Deluxe, but Return to Dreamland Original. Battle Royale. Battle Royale is another one where I legitimately really like using it. Battle Royale, it's just absurdly strong. It's so good. I don't know about the multiplayer, but for the speedrun, it's like, wow, why the Sword is bonkers here. Or Sword is absurd. I can't say bonkers, that's Hammer. But there are a lot of games where I really don't care. Squeak Squad and Amazing Mirror are perfectly in the middle. I just wanted to bring that up now, but like Triple Deluxe, Robobot. Personally, the Kirby Clash games, I don't like it, but I'll give it a pass because I can actually see what its appeal is. And I guess for ILs, I did a couple of ILs with Sword, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's fun. Adventure... Superstar, oh my god. Sword's also one of the very few abilities that I really don't like in Superstar Ultra, although Meta Knight's really good. I love Meta Knight in that game. What it realistically boils down to is that it's an ability that I kind of like, actually, but there's so many caveats to me liking it that I can't fully commit to saying that I'm a fan, that I really like Sword, that I think it's this amazing ability that, the ability that should represent Kirby Copy Abilities, right? It's Sword. It's what Kirby uses to fight Meta Knight. It's what Kirby uses to cut ropes. I don't know why that's more iconic than fighting Meta Knight, but that said, it is a perfectly fine ability. I do like it. I'm going to put it above Leaf and below ESP. I do wish that there is a game where it really clicked with me. The closest that we probably have is Meta Knight Sword in Forgotten Land. I actually really love Meta Knight Sword. It's one of my favorite abilities in Forgotten Land. You gotta get to Meta Knight first. Now, granted, Meta Knight's early on. This is by far the earliest tier 3 upgrade that you get. So, I mean, it's not like a lot of the other tier 3s where it's like, cool, you have the tier 3 now, and there's World 6 left, right? Meta Knight Sword you'll have for Blizzard Bridge. You'll have for a lot of the boss fights. That's probably the only one that really, where Sword clicked with me. Whereas it's in so many other games and it's never really clicked with me personally. Some have come close, like Chapter 1 Fighters 2. Sometimes. I mean, I'm not crazy about Zelda either. That's the, like, the part to me, when people are like, oh, it's a Zelda reference, it's like, it kind of, not that it annoys me, but when people are like, that's why Sword is my favorite, you're literally saying, like, I like this ability because I could be playing a better game. Like, first of all, it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think Kirby's much better. Okay, maybe not wrong. That's a more objective term. More like, I respectfully disagree. But it just feels so weird to me that people want Sword to be the face of the series because Sword is a reference to another one. Actually, I lied. There is another game where Sword does click with me. It's Air Ride. Air Ride. I forgot about Air Ride. Air Ride Sword is really good. I really like Sword and Air Ride a lot. My bad. My bad. It doesn't change the placement, but I forgot to bring up Air Ride. We will start with Spider, which has been exactly in one game. I remember saying a while back that it doesn't matter if an ability is only in one game, so long as it's really fun, and it'll keep me coming back to that game to play it, or the game is just so naturally good. Spider is in kind of an unfortunate spot because it's in Star Allies, and I like Star Allies. It is a really fun time, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't like it, because I really do like it, but it is still one that I feel not a lot of desire to go back to. And if I do go back to it, it's for ultimate choice stuff, guest star mode, things that aren't really going to involve Spider all that much. Or so you would think. Because it's not great for either guest star allies or the boss rush mode, but it is so much fun. I don't really care because it is so much fun. I love Spider, and I hate bugs, mind you. I hate bugs, but puppy love Spider. I don't have too much to say on it, unfortunately, just because it is only in Star Allies. I will say, though, if I'm going through the story mode and I'm not speedrunning it, Spider is one of my favorite abilities to use. I still don't like Kirby's movement in Star Allies so much without a dash attack, and Spider's not having a mobile dash attack is kind of tough, but as always, you can get dream friends, you can get help partners, whatever, helpers, buddies, blah, and they can make the experience for basic movement a lot easier. But if you're doing combat, Spider is just so much fun to use against basic enemies because of how the webs trap enemies inside, and stuff like your dash attack just shoots webs forward that they can fall into. I also really love its upcharge attack, the friend bounce, where you create a heart-shaped spider web for you or your friends to bounce on. And if you hold A, it apparently goes higher, which I didn't know until learning the Soul Melter EX solo run. It may not be good for bosses, but I really loved that Spider run. I had a genuinely amazing time with it. I love the aesthetic, purple and yellow, like I was saying before with Archer. They're complementary colors. They pop really well. I don't like them so much on regular clothes, but on hats, I love purple and yellow as a combination. It looks, especially this shade of yellow with this shade of purple, it goes really, really well. Unfortunately, I think that's really all I get to say on Spider because, unless I'm mistaken, it is not in Heroes in Another Dimension. But out of all the abilities that Star Allies introduced, I do want to point this out. Festival is all the way down here. Staff is here. Artist is here. I do not like these. I don't. And then this is the only one that never reappeared in a later game. Okay. Don't worry. Kirby in the Forgotten Land 2. You're going to go into an abandoned building. There's going to be spider webs. You inhale them. It's over. I think the last time I did a tier list, I had Jet, like, in this ballpark. But it was just, I had, like, the knowledge of what made Jet cool, not the execution to back that up. Now that my execution is a lot better, like, oh my god. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I love Jet so much. I love Jet so much. Every game it's in, which is only 3, but every game it's in, it is an absolute delight. It's definitely at its strongest in Planet Robobot. I'm not going to try to kid myself, but I would honestly argue it's at its weakest in Superstar Ultra, but that one is also my favorite. Not only the game itself is my favorite, but Jet in that game is my favorite. It has different cheese in all of the games. In Superstar, it has stuff like the ease of mini-boss quick kills by jumping into their butt. It's got super jumping or bonking into walls so that you can bypass the mini-boss loading zones. Just outright skip those fights. It technically has the charged command grab quick kills that it still has in Ultra. There's a much more influence on you angling it when you use the dash attack in the air. It's got a dash attack in the air. That's another thing. It's got a unique float. I love abilities with unique floats. I guess that's not a superstar strength. Let's go one step at a time. Planet Robobot, it is absurdly busted in Planet Robobot. It's not even for the same reasons as Superstar. It's very different. It is probably, between the 3 games, probably the worst against the bosses of any of them, but compared to the competition, compared to how much stronger abilities are in Robobot, you could just straight up argue that it's the best. I guess it depends on how you look at it, because in OG Superstar, it's among the best. Superstar Ultra, it's a little bit worse, but it's still among the best enough to where you keep it for the boss fights. And then in Planet Robobot, there's like literally instances where you'll get rid of Jet so that you can take Cutter. The thing about Jet in Robobot is that you are in a game with boss killers like Cutter. You are in a game with boss killers like Hammer and Ice. If we're looking at what Jet is better than, there are a lot of really good abilities that Jet does better against bosses in. And it is also, despite being in a game with fire, it is handily the best ability for moving through levels. And if it's better than fire for movement, that's kind of insane. It also shoutouts to Robobot Jet for having the most busted hover in the series. Like, if you think Mecha's is busted, play Robobot and use that hover. Use that hover in tandem with its pew, where it shoots forward. You don't really need to worry about using the dash attack in the air for Robobot. It's very different in Robobot. compared to the Superstar games. In both Superstar and Robobot, you would use abilities other than Jet for any percent. Do you use abilities other than Jet? KSSU any percent? You only use Jet for Spring Breeze. You only use Jet for Dynablade. I guess you use Wing for Gourmet Race. You only use Jet for GCO. You only use Jet for Meta Knight. You use Jet and Hammer, I guess, for Milky Way. So I guess in theory, if we're talking about like percentages, you use Jet the most in KSSU, which is probably another reason I've become so acclimated to it, because I've used it so much. But I don't know, I like how when you do that dash attack in the air, you stay perfectly straight. Like, you can't move up, you can't move down. Well, you can move down, but you can't move up. If you're not holding down, you won't move down. It's got a really nice timing-based rhythm to it. It's stupid against mini bosses. Pretty good against bosses, too. Good enough, evidently, because you keep it for the whole game. It is very good. And I know I'll be talking about this with Wing a little later, but, like, it can feel a little dry if it's the only ability that you're using for a game. But Jet has such a high skill ceiling compared to Wing. Wing has a lot of cool tech, but the skill ceiling is really low. Jet's skill ceiling is so high. There's so much you can do with Jet, depending on how far you want to go. I just feel like it's so emblematic of what makes Kirby speedrunning so fun, and just Kirby games in general. Also, a baller design. I love that Kirby has the protective goggles to protect their face while they're flying, but they don't wear them. I always thought they were sunglasses when I was a kid. Then I grew up, and it's like, oh, those aren't sunglasses. Those are protective headwear so that your eyes don't die on you. Is it Wing? I think Wing is next. Wing is next! Yay! So despite what I just said before, I really like Wing. Wing is in a similar boat. There's so much to talk about because of how good it is for zooming through the levels. Because I speedrun, like, I feel like I'm obligated to put it up here. And I'll put it at the top. I'll put it, like, even above Tornado. There's not as much passion behind the Wing pick as there is with something like Tornado, or Doctor, or Ball, or Bubble, or High Jump, or Spider. It really makes you appreciate Wing a lot more when you do ability solos. Like, especially Return to Dreamland, when you've done the abilities that are, like, actually really good. And then just picking Wing and seeing just how you can decimate the game. I love breaking games apart. Like, not breaking them in terms of glitches and stuff. That's fun. I'm making this game look pathetic. I'm making it look weak. I really like doing that. A lot less mean. I like to do that in a much friendlier way. But I really like doing that. And Wing consistently allows me to do that. Even in, like, KSS, KSSU, where it's not as good as something like Jet, for example, it's still one of the best abilities in the game, and it still sees use for, like, both games. You use Wing in Gourmet Race, you use it in GCO Hundo. I think there's, like, one other spot you use Wing in for one of the games, but I can't remember what it is. It is really fun, and I absolutely do not mind it completely dominating some of the any percents. Notably, Return Deluxe, where it is literally the only ability you use, for any percent at least. Return Deluxe Wing is actually super interesting because of how Mix works. I mean, it was already interesting in the original because it was so good, but there were so many reasons for you to have to drop it, for single player anyway. But for Return Deluxe, where there's a lot more mixed spots, you still got to get rid of it a lot, but there's also mixed spots that you can get back in. It's just inherently a lot more interesting to me. But my point is, it has things like Return and Return Deluxe single player hundo. It has things like Triple Deluxe, where fire is better, so you only get a couple of fringe uses out of it. There's stuff like Planet Robobot, where it's not even there. There's stuff like Superstar Ultra, where vertical movement is the big reason why it's used for this stuff. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. All right, Spark, I have a lot less to say about. I can keep this one pretty brief. I really like it in Nightmare. It's one of my favorites in Nightmare. And since we're morphing it with Plasma, I really like Plasma in KSS and KSA. Superstar and Star Allies. Not Superstar. I like it a lot in Superstar Ultra, but I don't need to explain why it's so much better in KSS because it's the best boss killer in the game. Let me rank it. Hold on, let me rank it. It's going here. Fridge is really fun. I don't remember what even the combinations are. So Wheel is a tricky one because it's like I think about it and I don't really get all that crazy about it. I don't like Wheel in the Superstar games, for example. Wheelie Rider's like alright, but I don't really like Wheel all that much. But Wheel is so much fun in a game like Amazing Mirror or Nightmare in Dreamland. Squeak Squad, oh my god. Squeak Squad Wheel genuinely is somewhere up here. But we're looking at all the wheels as well as the Wheelie Riders, which does improve it a little bit. We'll put Wheel here. It's mostly the GBA, the Arca games, but it's also like I enjoy using it in Dream Course. I know I just said, but I don't like it in Superstar. I actually do like it in Superstar Ultra. They just made some fixes to like the physics and stuff that made me enjoy it a lot more. It feels like you go slow a lot less of the time, which is really nice. Wheel is fun to move around with, though, especially in the GBA games where they just went completely crazy with it. Dream Chorus, I hate Dream Chorus music. It started playing, perfect timing. Dream Chorus, it's also fun, a little limiting, but Still fun. Anything that can give you movement in Dream Course is fun to mess around with. I like it more in Robobot. Maybe it's just the level design, I'm not sure. But I still don't like it for bosses. The only game that I like it for bosses, realistically, is Amazing Mirror. Squeak Squad, it's good for bosses. I would just rather use something else. Because Squeak Squad gives you so many absurd options. Moving through the levels in Planet Robobot is a lot more fun to me than it is in Triple Deluxe. It's just, I guess, part of the nature of it. I really like using Wheel's charge attack to go faster and then do the jump out of it. You go soaring. Again, you do it in Triple Deluxe too. I just like it more in Robobot. There's also another thing that I like a lot about Wheel. Robobot armor is fantastic. We're not talking about it. But another thing I really like about Wheel is every 4th level is a factory level. And if you have Wheel, it is really easy to go through all of them real quickly. Not World 3s because you're underwater for that one, but nothing can get through that one quick. And I might not like it against bosses, but I like it more than in Triple Deluxe because that charge attack actually works. Actually, if you can get in a good spot against bosses where you can hit them with it, but not take damage, it'll do constant hits. It's really funny. But that's really all I gotta say about Wheel. I really like it, or I really like it, but not as much as I could. All right, so next up, we're actually gonna do Fire because I have a lot to say on Fire, not that much to say on Throw. So let's get Fire out of the way. Okay, so I have Fire above Sleep. Like, I have Fire here. Sleep isn't what I'm thinking about. It's Cutter. Cutter is the one that I'm thinking about, but I think I can commit to this. So it's been 3 years since I've said this, and I'm gonna stick by it. I think Fire is the single best ability in the series. It completely dominates. Let's see what it dominates. It is definitely the best ability in 64. It's, yeah, I would say it's the best ability for Dreamland 3. If we combine it with Burning, then it is the best ability for Canvas Curse. Yeah, I would say Canvas Curse. Well, normal Kirby. I guess if you count normal Kirby, but just looking at abilities, I'd say it's better than Wheel for Canvas Curse. Fire is actually the best ability in Triple Deluxe. Block Ball. I get to talk about Block Ball today. What the heck? But Burning is like easily, or Fire is easily the best ability in Block Ball. And if we're talking about the games where it's not the best, but it's up there, Return to Dreamland, easy number 2. Dream Course, easy. It's really good in Adventure. It's really good in Nightmare. Both Fire and Burning are insanely good in Amazing Mirror. Fire has actually become better and Burning has become worse, believe it or not. Pretty good for Squeak Squad too. Not that bad in Squeak Squad. Very good in Superstar Ultra. It's already the best in Triple Deluxe. I said that. Somewhere between number 4 to number 2 in Planet Robobot. Star Allies tragically got power crept, but I would say, ooh, is it top 1 or top 2 or top 3 or what is it for Forgotten Land? I'd probably say it's the best for Forgotten Land. I'd definitely say it's the best for Dream Buffet too. This isn't actually like my personal thoughts. There are abilities that I like more than Fire per game, but the speedrunning dominance, the chokehold that it has over so many games, it's harder to list the games where it's like not insanely good. It's insanely good in a lot of them. That's what I'm trying to say. The point I'm trying to get across. And it's also really good for beating bosses. Return to Dreamland is very good. Maybe not Deluxe, but Return to Dreamland is really good. Now we're going to shift over to why I like it. I mean, part of the reason is because I just think it's so absurdly dominant for speedrunning. Now, obviously, you know, it's not always number 1, but the fact that it's consistently so good just says so much about it. And a lot of that carries over, you know? I love Fire's dash attack being Burning from the older games. I love doing the Fire spin on the ground and getting a huge zoomie when you land. I love using Fire to climb walls. That's always been really fun. I really like that Amazing Mirror made it a multi-hit instead of it just kind of doing set damage. I already mentioned it was solid in Squeak Squad. I like it a lot in Squeak Squad. It does have a dash attack, which makes it a little annoying for me. Superstar Ultra, my favorite game in the series. I love Fire in Superstar Ultra. I wish Fire appeared more outside of Milky Way Wishes Hundo. But it showing up in Milky Way Wishes Hundo makes it one of the best parts of the game. I cannot wait until we get to do Superstar Ultra ability solos. One, they're going to be a lot shorter. The videos are going to be way easier to make. But also because I get to use so many abilities like Fire that are just so cool. Obviously, Return to Dreamland Triple Deluxe, it's busted. Robobot, it's busted. I don't know too much about it in Star Allies, though. I imagine it's very good, given its range and the multi-hit properties, but I don't know a lot about it. I'm very much looking forward to when we do the Soul Melter EX solo with it. There's so much for me to love about Fire. It's such a cool design, such a cool ability, so many speedrun applications, great for movement, great for bosses. Obviously, it's not good in every game. I don't want to treat it like that. And some of these, I am assuming that you're including Burning with it. Some instances, such as Adventure and Nightmare and Dreamland, it's not nearly as good without Burning. And then there's instances like Kirby 64 where it's just not in the game at all. But because Burning is a part of its moveset now, I think it's fair to count them together, but if you want to say no, I totally understand that. I would still argue that one of the two are the best. No, I really like fire, though. Fire is super. Fire is super. I don't have a lot to say on throw. I like throw. I like throw. There's a lot of cheese you can do with throw that I really like. A little too basic for my liking, unfortunately. I really can't bring myself to rank it much higher, but I like it. So I think I said, what did I say? I think whip I said was the, whoops. I think I said whip was the most obvious of the top tiers. There's one that I think is obviously a lot more obvious. I don't even know what to say. Like, I talk about Parasol so much. Like, I mean, we'll say this much. We know where it's going. It's going here. Like, that's the obvious part, right? We all knew that was coming. But I just don't know what to say about it. Like, go watch my channel. Go watch, like, go watch any video that I've ever made, and you'll get a better idea of why I like Parasol so much than anything that I could say in a condensed amount of time. I kind of actually, like, weirdly enough, I kind of don't want to talk about it. Only because well, if I do, I'm going to give it its own tier, which I kind of don't feel like doing just because it takes up more space. But I also feel like I'm really thinking about it, like thinking about how it compares to Bomb. I like Parasol a lot more than I like Bomb. Yeah, I like it a lot more than I like Bomb. I think that says enough. I think that really says enough. Really tempted to just say, go watch my other videos. Go watch my other streams. Come listen to me talk about Kirby literally anytime I talk about Kirby. I'm going to bring this up because I really like it. I really like this, and it's good. I mean, if I could talk, I guess talk about the speedrunning aspect of it instead of just why I like it. Well, I mean, the speedrunning is a part of it. Even when I was a kid, I kind of noticed that, like, wow, this ability is, like, really fun. I mean, sure, I didn't know anything about speedrunning, but I used, like, the dash attack in Superstar Ultra, right? And it just felt good. It felt like I was moving really fast. I will also say Superstar Ultra Parasol is my, if you want to narrow down a game and an ability, Superstar Ultra Parasol is my favorite copy ability. Return to Dreamland comes very close. Return to Dreamland Parasol comes very, very close. But I do not like it quite as much as Superstar Ultra. They're very, very close, though. I feel like I would say it could change depending on, like, a flip of a dime, but it never does. So, it never does, is what I said before my voice gave out on me for some reason. So, there you go. I guess the only thing that I have to add, I guess if we're going to talk about complaints, because I never do this, I really don't like Parasol and Squeak Squad. I really don't. It's why I said, you may remember me saying when we were talking about Bomb, I said that it was the only ability that I consistently really love in every game. That is because Squeak Squad Parasol is actually probably one of my least favorites in that game. I really don't like it. I love it in Amazing Mirror and I love it in Nightmare. It's a Squeak Squad thing, and the ability scroll upgrade that it gets is really lame. But I mean, other than that, like Adventure, I love it. Dream Course, I love it. Dreamland 2, I love it. Dreamland 3, I love it. Superstar OG, I love it. Aston hates it, but I love it. Superstar Ultra, it's my favorite, obviously. I love it. Amazing Mirror, I love it. Nightmare, I love it. I think I said those two already. I could be wrong, though. Fighters Deluxe and Fighters 2, I love it. Return to Dreamland, I love it. Triple Deluxe, I love it. Robobot, I love it. Star Allies, I love it. Can't believe, wow, I actually forgot Battle Royale. Wow. Obviously, I love it there. Really love Parasol and Battle Royale. It's a very aggressively defensive ability. I love that a lot. Star Allies, I love it there. Fighters 2, I love it there. Yeah, no, I just... Whoops. It is really fun. And instead of listening to me yap about it now, listen to me yap about it literally any other time I talk about Kirby. So there we go. All right, here's your tier list, chat. Here's your tier list. This is Puppy's Kirby Copy Ability tier list. It was for Kirby Month 1 that I made the last one. That was 5 years. So this is like almost 5 years in the making. But I finally did it. I finally did a follow-up, and I put a lot more thought and explaining and effort into this one. This was really fun. This was, I did not expect it to take 2 streams. My bad on that one. But this was a really fun project to do. I really liked going through all the copy abilities and seeing which ones I liked the most. I mean, I'm sure we'll revisit this sooner than 5 years from now. It's not going to be that long. But it's going to be a while. I thought really hard on this one. It took me a while. So I don't think this is going to be a topic we're going to be revisiting. I think this is it. This is what I'm going to settle with. This is what we got. All right, we did it. I can't believe it took almost 10 hours. Don't get me wrong. It feels good to do this, though, you know? I'm glad that we did it.